What's up, everybody? It's your boy DJ Charlize Theron can kick my ass, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In: a movie podcast. On this week's episode, Joel and I will take a look at all the Comic-Con and DisneyCon, D23 news, and trailers that we have missed, and put them on this episode, plus all the other news and trailers that have dropped throughout the weekend, commentate on them for you guys, and then we will both have our reviews of Atomic Blonde, starring Charlize Theron. Is it the female John Wick, or is it, like, I don't know, gonna be the non-female John Wick? You see what I did there? So anyways, you're gonna have to sit down, relax, and find out. What's up, all you cool people out there, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In: a movie podcast, where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and anything about movies. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listen, if you're searching on the internet for something really random, or, you're not a movie fan, well, hopefully you listen to this entire episode, and we can convince you to be one, because that is the whole point. We love movies. We want you to be passionate about it, just as we are passionate about it. Or, I'm passionate about it, and then, Joel is just over there doing his thing or whatnot, because he actually doesn't really like movies. But anyways, this is episode 193. If you're new to the show, welcome. What we usually do is we go over some movie news and some movie trailers and kind of commentate on them for you guys, and then we'll have our reviews of said movie on the weekend, and of course, box office results. This weekend, we are going to be reviewing Atomic Blonde, also known in the trades as Female John Wick. So basically, if you make a movie that is compared to another movie, you will never be able to stand on your own, and you will always be compared as the female something. So that's awesome. But like I said, guys, I'm Chase Lee, and that is the rundown for this week's episode. But there's another person here. I mean, he's on here every single week, and he hasn't talked for 3 months. And I figure this would be the first episode for him to come out of his show. So Joel, how are you doing this week? What are your first words you're going to have on this show?
Baby boo boo gaga. I don't know.
Wow, that was terrible. That was absolutely awful. I apologize for everyone.
No, I'm pretty good. It's been a busy week of watching movies and catching up on some Netflix stuff. And but otherwise, been pretty good. So
yeah, it's been pretty good over here. What's really funny is Joel and I actually watched one of our movies yesterday that we're going to be discussing next weekend because
it just happened to open. It just happened to open. It was one of the 6 theaters, Detroit.
Right? It's so weird. It's just hey, we're going to open up in 6 theaters this weekend. Oh yeah, Dallas is one of them. It's okay. So
that never happens. I just want to tell people, whenever you hear about, there's a movie that opens in a handful of theaters one week and then expands the next week or rolls out during the following month or something. It's never Dallas. It's always just New York and LA, maybe Chicago. But in this case, there were, I think, 2 theaters in New York, 2 theaters in LA, 1 in Chicago, and 1 here in Dallas.
It was so weird. What a weird fucking group of cities. So, so we actually saw Detroit already. But hey, guys, that's next week's show. What are we going to think about? Well, there's your tease for you. But this week, Joel, we're doing Atomic Blonde. Are you ready to do this? Because I've had a pretty good week, and I'm ready to kind of jump into this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. Let's just say that. I'm a tease. I'm a horrible tease. But
I know Joel's terrible at it. He's like the guy that will go up to you, kind of open up his shirt slowly, start twisting his nips, maybe put some ice on it, and he's just yeah.
Pulling my chest hair.
You're like, what are you doing? It's I'm teasing you, fam. It's Joel, put your fucking shirt on. All right, so let's jump into the movie news, guys, because there is a lot of it. And just like what we said last weekend, we did not go over Comic-Con news or D23 news or whatever, and we just kind of waited until this weekend to pick out the best from both of those conventions and just slop it on this week's episode. So that's what we are going to be doing. And speaking of that, let's jump into some Comic-Con news. And this also broke at D23 because Marvel is owned by Disney, and Disney owns everything, including Joel's soul. All right, so the first piece of news is that Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's going to be the sequel to the 2015 hit with Paul Rudd. Oh, God, from Knocked Up and 40-Year-Old Virgin. I never thought I'd say that in a million years. and it was a pretty great hit for Marvel, especially being a movie that kind of standing on its own, not really connecting to anything else bigger. It's a new character and whatnot, so it did pretty well. So a sequel's coming out, and they have just announced a slew of actors and actresses to take up roles, one or two of which are confirmed. Well, actually, I think all three of them are confirmed, but I forgot two of the names, so I apologize. Because the most important one is Michelle Pfeiffer. Michelle Pfeiffer was cast as Janet Van Dyne, or I believe that's how you say it. It's basically Evangeline Lilly's mother. She is the mother wasp, if you will. So having her on is really cool. Lawrence Fishburne is going to cross streams and not only be in the DC films, but be in the Marvel films as well. And Walton Goggins has also been cast as a villainous role. And that should be pretty interesting, because if you see his role in Vice Principals, you realize that he can play a douche extremely well. So I actually like all three of these picks, and I think it's kind of cool that, Michelle Pfeiffer was in, Batman Returns, and Lawrence Fishburne's been in, Man of Steel and BVS and whatnot. Walton Goggins hasn't really gotten into, comic book movies, so this is really exciting. When I heard about the Walton Goggins news, Joel, I got really excited, just like when I did when they announced Corey Stoll as the villain in Ant-Man, but I also remember that Corey Stoll was kind of underused as Yellow Jacket, so I'm not going to get my hopes up too much, but as a solid, cast list, addition to this film, I love all three of these picks, and I think Michelle Pfeiffer, I'm already imagining the conversation she's going to have with Evangeline Lilly and Michael Douglas, and just they actually look like a family. They actually look like they would be a family, so it actually makes sense that she would be the mother. So I like all three of these. I have no problem with them. Do you like all three of these people? And which one are you looking forward to the most?
Oh gosh, well, everybody likes Lawrence Fishburne. I think that's kind of that's kind of a given. He's one of the greats. I'm a huge fan of Walton Goggins. This got me all excited because I'm a huge fan of the show Justified, and he's one of the villains on there. In fact, he's, I think, the main villain. There's several, but so of course I'm looking forward to that. I hope that they let him keep his southern drawl, because he's done a couple of roles here and there where he gives it up, and he's got a little bit of a straighter accent, just without the regional, non-regional accent. I hope that they have him keep it, because that would be a lot of fun. To see him kind of molasses it up as a Marvel villain would be a really, really fun thing. But I'm most excited for Michelle Pfeiffer, just because we have her in this movie, and then now after just having Michael Keaton in Spider-Man: Homecoming, I want them to basically cast all of the actors from the 80s and 90s Batman movies, just all of them, in some of these at some point. Even if it's a Marvel show, even if they stick Jim Carrey in the background of a Marvel show, I want all of them to be a part of it, because I would have so much fun seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger come in. But anyway, nevertheless, Michelle Pfeiffer is one of my favorite actresses. Just going way back, I always enjoy seeing her and stuff, and she's not been on a lot recently, so I'm looking forward to that. And so all really, really solid picks. I actually liked Ant-Man a lot. It's very much the better 2015 Marvel movie for me. I know that that's going to be considered shade against Avengers: Age of Ultron, but I was not a fan.
You watch your mouth, Joel. You watch your mouth over there.
I refuse. I was not a fan of that movie, so Ant-Man really hit all the spots for me. I agree, sorta, kinda, about Corey Stoll. I think he was underused. But as a villain, though, I thought that the character was interesting. So
yeah, for sure.
I think that even if they underused him, I think that he was an interesting character. He had a conceivable motivation. So, or conceivable. I meant, I guess conceivable is the right word. And so anyway, if they can continue that, obviously Walton Goggins is going to be kind of a bottle villain, if you will, because clearly, Ant-Man and the Wasp was probably going to be a bottle episode in Marvel, but in those final steps before the fourth Avengers movie. But Yeah, I'm excited for this movie and for this cast joining it, and yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those ones that we're definitely gonna look forward to. I believe 2018. I believe it's next year.
Yeah, I
We'll
think
check.
it's after Infinity War next year.
Okay, so
I think
July.
it's one, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And just one last thing before we move on. I know a lot of people think Michelle Pfeiffer is super sexy in Batman Returns in that leather suit. I agree. However, she's pretty seductive in What Lies Beneath, and I kind of like it. All right, so anyways, moving on.
And the entire point of her character in Martin Scorsese's The Age of Innocence is that she's a foil for Daniel Day-Lewis's character. So she has that
Sex appeal.
Sex appeal, definitely. I mean, she was I think at one point the sexiest woman of the year or whatever. I'm pretty sure she was chosen for that somewhere in the mid '90s. So it's not surprising. She's very pretty and she's a great actress. So
yeah, well, and the only reason I bring this up is because last year I watched it for the very first time in theaters, which was Batman Returns. I'm like, Jesus Christ! Like you're sitting in the seat like all hot and bothered and shit, and you're like, damn, like I don't know if I'm gonna make it through this movie. All right, so
she is remarkably seductive in that movie. It's great.
For sure, it's ridiculous. But yeah, the next piece of news with Marvel is that Captain Marvel has not shot yet, but they do have some concept art that they kind of threw up in Hall H over Comic-Con. They also had some details for the movie, which I didn't even know they were going to go this direction, but it makes a lot of sense since they were going to introduce these things in the first place. And what do I mean by things? The main villains will be the Skrulls. And if you are not like knee deep into comic book lore, don't worry, I'm not either. I had to do my research just real fast because I remember hearing about the Skrulls as shapeshifters. I wasn't really sure if I was thinking of them or the Watchers, and I got them mixed up just very periodically. But yes, they are the shapeshifters, kind of like within the Marvel universe. And there's actually a theory floating around that Stan Lee's cameos in those movies, he's actually a Skrull. He's a Skrull hidden in disguise as this old, frail man that says these witty, funny puns in the movies, and he's actually doing some damage. So that would actually be pretty cool. And it would actually make a lot of sense because at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, there is a in-credit scene where, he's with someone, the Stan Lee cameo character, and it's like, huh. Yeah, he's probably a Skrull. But anyways, those are going to be the villains. It's going to be set in the 90s, and Nick Fury is going to have both of his eyes. So there was a lot of details that kind of emerged about this movie, and gets me really excited. I'm excited to see Marvel's kind of take on their solo female superhero, especially after DC has knocked it out of the park with Wonder Woman. So it's going to be great to kind of see them go back and forth. And then having her alongside Nick Fury, that makes sense. You bring in someone kind of smaller to really kind of help support the character, just like what Nick Fury did in Captain America Winter Soldier. He was a nice support system for Cap and Black Widow in that movie, so that makes sense. And then putting in the Skrulls. Now, I don't know the actual backdoor deals for 20th Century Fox and Marvel, but I do know that 20th Century Fox owns the majority of the Skrulls. So Disney Marvel actually has some access to some of them. So I'm wondering, which ones are they? And, maybe in the near future, maybe 20th Century Fox can finally work out a deal with them and whatnot and let them have more Skrulls or whatever. So I have no clue, but having shapeshifters as your villain, that could be fun. Can you imagine Nick Fury and Captain Marvel going down the streets of New York or whatever, and they can't tell where the fucking Skrulls are because they're all disguised as frail old people or punk teenagers or whatever. So I don't know. It could be a lot of fun, but I definitely want to see Captain Marvel in this realm, in this Marvel Cinematic Universe. We won't get to see her in the Infinity War next year. We're going to see her in Avengers 4, which tells me what happened. What is going to happen in her movie to actually send her off and away from Earth for this amount of years? So I'm curious to see her story, and I'm curious to see where she ends up because she's obviously not going to be seen in the third Avengers. So, but these new ideas and concepts, Joel, and whatnot about the Captain Marvel movie, do you think Do you think they're going in the right direction with this, especially being set in the 90s and, having shapeshifters as their villains and whatnot?
Having shapeshifters as villains is neat. The '90s thing is kind of baffling to me because so late in the game, how are they gonna tie that together? I guess it would be a Captain America: First Avenger kind of situation where at the end of the movie we find out, maybe in the end credit scene probably we find out how she connects to the modern one, to the modern part of this universe. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this because of Brie Larson. I think that she's enormously talented. I can't wait to see her, kind of play off of Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, who I think is a lot of fun whenever he comes up. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's I have no feelings about the Skrulls because I have no idea what they are, but you never know. Shapeshifters could be very cool. Like you said, if we have Captain Marvel facing off against shapeshifters, it's pretty neat. I'm kind of rambling here because I don't know what they are. So
basically, like
the over my head kind of thing.
I mean, I understand that. Like they're basically like this race of extraterrestrial beings. They can shapeshift into pretty much anything they want. They have invisible powers. They're really good at fighting. So I'm actually really wondering, Joel. Now, bear with me here because obviously I am no screenwriter. But what if, what if Nick Fury or what if another Avenger pops in and they're actually a Skrull or something? I don't know. Like what that'd be fucking awesome. Like if they kind of like played with the shape-shifting ability and really kind of mess with their minds a little bit, and maybe that's what sends Captain Marvel off away from Earth because she's like, "Fuck this! I don't want to deal with the Skrulls."
Yeah, that might be very true. Where they're kind of bringing back the having one of the Avengers actors kind of come in and play somebody else playing them, like Chris Evans in the second
Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah, Thor: The Dark World, where he had Loki kind of briefly sort of dress himself up as Captain America. That would sort of be a similar-ish kind of situation, although this would be for, I guess, villains purposes. But yeah, that would be neat. That would be a lot of fun to see that happen.
But who knows? Joel and I are not comic book writers, so we have no idea what they're thinking about over there. But it's still interesting to kind of hear the progression of this movie because, like what Joel said, I'm a huge fan of Brie Larson. The woman is uberly talented. She is, God, like she's probably top 3 for me in terms of like hot actresses. I absolutely love this woman to death. And if you have not seen Room, not The Room, just Room, then you will be treated to a Oscar-winning performance, which I bawled in my seat when I watched it. So that is it for the Marvel news, guys. It's kind of a little short on the Marvel news, and as you guys can hear, there's a fire over at Marvel, and DC is about to put it out because you can hear the fire trucks. All right. So speaking of DC news, I will go ahead and start this one off, and they announced a bunch of movies on their slate, as Warner Brothers typically does. They're just like, we're going to do this, and that, and then we're going to change everything up within 6 months. So for the tentative slate that they have and that they presented, I noticed something in there. Now, they have the Green Lantern Corps, they have Wonder Woman, we'll get to that in a second, but, there was something in the middle that kind of stuck out. And they're going to be going with a Flashpoint storyline for the Flash movie. Now, you're probably thinking, what is so significant about that? If you guys know your comic book lore, Flash is one of those characters that can actually change and alter time. He can actually, pretty much, if something happens, he can rewind time and, fix all these screw-ups or go off into a different dimension, a different alternate timeline, a different alternate, what the fuck? Anyways, he is one of those characters that can actually cause a lot of damage in kind of timelines in the comic book universe. So the fact that they're doing Flashpoint, because Joel, I don't know if you read this up, but there was a kind of a story that was out there saying that Warner Brothers really wants to kind of get away from Zack Snyder and David Ayer's type of style, pretty much I would consider after Justice League. So if they're doing a Flashpoint, do you think this is a possibility that Warner Brothers wants to use that movie to kind of course correct and kind of change up their style and tone a little bit, considering that their first 3 movies out of the 4 so far have been not received well, even though I like 2 out of those 3. Suicide Squad can suck my big fat cactus dick, and then of course Wonder Woman is wonderful. So do you think they're using this Flashpoint storyline to make corrections for future movies in terms of tone?
Probably so. I've had this theory for a while that they were going to probably do a course correction of tone, maybe even visual tone, because a lot of the movies so far have been kind of dark visually. And so this would make sense, whether it's with Flashpoint, we don't know, whether it's something else, we haven't really heard anything to that effect yet, but I'm certainly interested to see where they go, because they clearly know that they've got some issues. They brought in the director of the Avengers to reshoot some stuff, and we'll get to that in a minute. But with Justice League, and I feel like they know that they've got some issues, some asterisks on their projects right now that are y'all got to figure some stuff out, because people are not really buying it except for Wonder Woman, and that was sort of an exception, though. I think that Justice League still has a lot riding on it in that department, because is it going to be different, because it was already shooting when Wonder Woman was shooting, and I think that people are keeping their eye on that. And then, of course, from then on, obviously, it's going to be a question of whether Justice League works for audiences and whether Warner's wants to keep that going, rather than something like Wonder Woman, big as it was. That's one movie as opposed to 4 others. So if the 4 others, if they go back to the Snyder aesthetic with Justice League and it works, then what will they do with that? So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. This is not a timeline I'm familiar with. I'm not a comics guy, but certainly excited to see Ezra Miller in his own movie as this character. We haven't seen anything from his character yet, but nevertheless, yeah, it's turning out to be an interesting universe for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Ezra Miller looks like the standout in Justice League. When we get to that trailer talk, I'm sure we'll both kind of agree with that. Like, they're basically pushing him as the comedic relief, and he really kind of stands out, especially with that Comic-Con trailer. So
yeah, he might be the Spider-Man to this universe right now, where he's
for sure
a younger cast member, seems to be about college age or so, or just past that, and so this definitely seems to be the Spider-Man to the DCU. So.
Oh yeah, I totally agree, and I think I'm totally on board with you. This Flashpoint thing is definitely going to course correct some things, but I'm sure Warner Brothers is still curious to see how Justice League will be received, because it is the follow-up after Wonder Woman. However, it's going to have that Zack Snyder flair to it still, and that has really kind of perturbed some people when it came to Man of Steel and BVS. So time is going to tell in terms of what it's going to do opening weekend, how much legs it's going to have, because I think Joel and I can agree, because we're about to have a clash with the trailers here in the next section. But when Thor Ragnarok comes out 2 weeks before your movie, if Thor Ragnarok fucking kills, it's going to screw you. Like, it's going to take some out of your box office. I'm still flabbergasted to this day that they still wanted to release 2 weeks after that. So, but whatever, we got to see. But Flashpoint, definitely going to be some changing up in here. So, Joel, what do we got in the DC news over there? What do we got going on?
Yeah, I guess I'll go with the quickest one first. There's really not much to say about this one. Obviously, Wonder Woman 2 is happening, and it's going to be... Yeah, the first one was a minor box office success. Not huge. I'm just kidding. Um, but yeah, so this is interesting, and I actually feel like this might change because I think that there's a huge question mark. And I'm going to get to that in a second. But Wonder Woman 2 is currently slated for December 13th, 2019, which is typically the Star Wars weekend. Hint, hint to my thought in a second. But yeah, so this makes it a week before Masters of the Universe, about a week and a half or so before Wicked, which is the musical adaptation. And it's the big one of December, which means that I feel like they're probably trying to go for an Aquaman kind of, grabbing that December release date before anybody else does. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Here's what I'm wondering. So, of course, Star Wars has been kind of taking over the December timeline this decade, and we've seen it happen now twice, and both times it's been on accident, sort of, or not accident, but unintentional, because originally Star Wars Episode 7 was supposed to come out in May 2015. Then it was moved to December. Then Rogue One was supposed to come out in May 2016. Then it was moved to December. Then you have Han Solo, and of course you have Episode 8 coming out this December. And it was originally supposed to be May. So, and that's true. I mean, there was a time where we had the news that it was going to be starting in May. It was going to be every May. So now we've had 3 separate events kind of push these movies into the December arena. And then now we have Han Solo has been, kind of futzed with a bunch, with, directors being pulled, another one being put on, a bunch of stuff behind the scenes. And I have a feeling like I'm wondering, at any point we're going to hear that the Han Solo movie's been moved to December 2018. And then I feel like with that, they're just going to be like, well, we might as well put Star Wars Episode 9 into December 2019, in which case everything else has got to move out of the way. So it's very interesting. I just have to wonder if that's going to happen. Obviously, we don't know. We haven't heard anything about Star Wars moving, so right now it's safe. But I just have to wonder, with everything that's happened to the Star Wars movies, whether they're going to release the 2 remaining ones that they have coming out, at least for this decade, in May still, or are they going to move them to December, especially considering, you had Carrie Fisher's death, obviously having a blow toward the 9th episode where she was supposed to play a big role. And so clearly some rewrites had to happen if they had even started yet. And if they hadn't started yet, obviously concept stuff had to be moved around. So I just have to wonder if they're going to move those, and then Wonder Woman 2 gets moved to like July 2020 or June 2020 or something. But as of right now, December 13th, 2019. That's the big piece of news regarding that one.
Yeah, Warner Brothers is getting too cocky. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Like, listen, I realize that Wonder Woman, when we get to the box office numbers, it's doing very, very well, especially for a comic book movie. It's not just doing like, it's doing pretty good. It's like, no, it's crushing at the box office. So I understand that they want to put their foot forward and go, okay, we're going to slam it near the Christmas season. I actually think they should just dominate June and just keep it in the June kind of summer feel, because what's going to happen from what we're seeing in December is when you have all the Star Wars movies, when you have in the future Avatar movies, when you have maybe even more comic book movies and other family films, it's getting too crowded, and they just need to go dominate the summer. So I actually don't think this is a good idea at all. I understand why they're doing it. It's closer to the Christmas season, and they realize it's a popular hit, so they realize a lot more people will probably go see it and whatnot at Christmas. I wish they would just dominate the summer. They're going to get swallowed up. And listen, if you want to go up against Star Wars, that's all on you. Listen, Sisters did it, and it did pretty well its opening weekend, considering that Star Wars The Force Awakens made almost damn near $250 million opening weekend. I realize the whole point of like counter-programming, even if you moved it a week before or a week after, you're still going to get crushed. I don't understand these studios trying to poke a bear. Like, it's just like they just see this bear who's just hungry for shit, and they just want to go up there and start poking it. Why the fuck are you poking it? Run the other fucking way and like go to a different month. It's the same thing with Deadpool and Deadpool 2. 20th Century Fox moved the sequel to June. Its first one came out Valentine's Day weekend, which I thought was kind of ballsy, but it worked because there was really no competition. Even though it was really funny because Joel, what was the other movie that opened up against it? Or do you remember?
It the first Deadpool?
Yeah, wasn't it like
There were two of them. There was How to Be Single and Zoolander 2.
No, those were in January. Or Zoolander 2 was in January.
No, it wasn't. It was that weekend.
What?
Yeah.
I must have saw the press screening in January. Anyways, that movie sucks balls. Going back to what I was saying, I would rather you just kind of stick with your months and just kind of dominate that. Like, that's kind of like your thing with Deadpool, and the same thing with Wonder Woman. They actually have the same audience, believe it or not. They're date movies. They're perfect date movies. And so having Deadpool on Valentine's Day was perfect. Having Wonder Woman near Christmas, I don't know, there was just something really cool about that. Like, first week in June, it was like, besides Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 in the beginning of May, the first week in June, Wonder Woman kicked the shit out of the summer and just really kind of started it off. So, I don't know. I just might be, a little biased because I loved the summer kind of like feel around Wonder Woman. It's like, yeah, summer movies, and let's go inside of a cold theater and stay away from the hot, weather, and just go watch Wonder Woman kick some ass.
It gave some dignity to June because June was pretty empty of like big movies that were good, and it feels like June has been kind of, it's not a dump month, per se, but in terms of summer, it feels like it has been the last few years, where they just kind of put the ones that nobody is super psyched for, other than this one, and and some animated stuff, but. Because Pixar's kind of been dominating June for a while, so that's been one thing. But in terms of big blockbuster live action, superhero fare, it's been kind of dead in June. So they offered some dignity to that month that it might not otherwise have had. So I totally agree. I think that they should put it, especially like 1 year after Deadpool 2 comes out, have Wonder Woman 2 and. I don't know. I think that because Deadpool is going to be the first weekend of June, so I think that that would fit. But who am I? I am but a man. All right. So the next bit of news has been kind of a roller coaster in the past week or so because of a faulty report that kind of signifies a lot of what is wrong with entertainment journalism right now, which is that somebody reported. That I can't remember who it was that originally reported it. I don't think it's possible to know.
Dumb shit?
Yes. So, we heard that there was a rumor that there was, like, supposed to be... Oh, it was a Hollywood Reporter, of course, because they get everything wrong right now. There was... like, Ben Affleck was supposed to exit the DCEU. We heard that Warner Brothers was making plans to that effect. And then... straight from Affleck himself during the Warner Brothers panel, that he's staying on. So of course, straight from the actor, you have to believe him, not the original report, because if he pretty much knows. Although I will say, he originally said he was staying on as director of the Batman, and then they announced like 2 weeks later that Matt Reeves was taking over. So I don't know. It's a weird thing over at Warner Brothers right now, but. From what we can tell, Affleck's supposed to be in 3 of these, so he's as a primary character, not including Suicide Squad, and so obviously the first was Batman v Superman. The next one's going to be the Batman, which is coming out, I guess, in 2019. Well, we don't know that yet, and then the third one, whenever that's supposed to be. So he's supposed to play this character 3 times. That's, I believe, his. Maybe, I think, standalone. Actually, I'm not sure. It's kind of weird because he's done the 2 movies. He's supposed to do this third one, and then And then what? I guess is he supposed to do any after that? I don't know, because I feel like we've been hearing that it's just very confusing to me, because we've been hearing from multiple people that there's supposed to be some sort of exit for the character. But then he says he's supposed to stay on. So I don't know if he's talking about for this next Batman movie, or if it's supposed to be a new trilogy. I don't know, and that's why I hate entertainment journalism. They make it so unclear. I'm sorry. I know that this is kind of what we do, but nevertheless, sometimes it's really annoying to try to follow other points of it, because
no, it really is, because they blow it out of proportion. They take a sentence and they make it like it's the end of the world. They don't really do their research, and then everything's fixed 72 hours later.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday, Joe Manganiello was asked by Screen Rant, I think it was Screen Rant, about something involving Deathstroke, and they quoted him as saying that he said it wasn't up to him whether he played Deathstroke. And then he tweeted back to the Screen Rant profile, "That's not what I said. You misquoted me." So who knows what's what? This is, again, guys, this is the state of things right now with entertainment journalism. It's basically like 60% rumors, 35% retractions, and then 5% celebrity gossip. Basically, that's how I like to summarize it, because it's just an echo chamber right now. I cannot tell you right now, because of the report that I'm reading, whether Ben Affleck's supposed to be playing Batman in a further trilogy of standalone movies, or whether that's the end of a trilogy with the character. I don't know. I don't know, and it's annoying, because I want to have some clarification here. We all do. Because this is getting annoying. Chase, can you help me kind of make sense of this?
I mean, okay, let's look at the positives first. Is that's awesome. I'm glad that he's signing on for 3 more. If it's a standalone trilogy that's with that storyline, or if he's going to do more or whatever, I'm glad that we're going to see him for at least 4 more times, because we have Justice League coming out in November. These fucking reports are just like, I don't understand it. You get so pissed off at people that are clickbaity, and then you make a report that's clickbaity, and then everything's solved within 2 days later. So they make a big deal out of nothing, get people riled up. People probably harassed Ben Affleck at Comic-Con, was just like,
yes.
There was a fucking report yesterday that said you weren't going to play anymore. Is that fucking true, bitch? And it's like, damn, dog. Like, where'd you find this shit out? And so I've never understood that mentality of, if you don't know for certain, why the fuck would you publish it? But then again, Joel, that's why we don't do this, because we don't make money off of this. They do, and they're just like, well, God damn it, we need rent for this month, so let's make this fake-ass Batman story. So it's like, stop it. Do your fucking research first before anything else happens. Okay? Yeah. Because literally, with him signing on to this, everything was fine. You just let it play out. But instead, you made an article in the middle of Comic-Con going, oh yeah, he's done. And this was before the Warner Brothers panel. So you basically rile people up, and then everything's fine afterwards. Like, why stop it? You're a fucking troll. That's all you are. Just fucking stop it.
To all entertainment writers out there, here's a little, like, I'm not even an entertainment journalist, but I'm going to give you all a journalism lesson. Here's how you do it. You hear something, then you source the heck out of it until you have like 4 people on record, and then you report it. That's how you do that. You don't just TMZ it and then hope that it's true and then ask the person directly about it at a panel. That's not how you do that. You get in touch with people on an official basis, and then you report it when you find out it's true. Stop reporting rumors. Stop it. Just stop it. STAHP. All right.
Joel, I just want to say, like, on the record, I'm glad that we don't do that shit. I'm glad that we just report stories that other people report, because if we had to do the actual reporting, I would be goddamn terrified that we get something wrong and then the people would like lynch us or something.
Yeah, let us clarify right now. We are not entertainment journalists.
No, we are not.
Yeah, we are, because if we were, this is what we would do. And I know that Chase probably, I mean, would be way more work for us, but if we decided that we wanted to become sort of entertainment journalists who were breaking, entertainment news, we would do this. I know that Chase, would have the integrity to actually check with people, try to get in touch, milk contacts. That's not what we do. We report on other reports, but the other reports have to be correct.
Correct, and that's why when something comes up, Joel and I do research on it just in case if it sounds sketchy, where it's like, I don't really know about that. We just kind of look further into it. If multiple reports are saying the same thing, we're like, okay, it's probably true then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into it because we found out that it's questionable, but there was one thing that just before we started the show fell off the slate because I found some stuff that said it's not happening. So I'm not going to go into that. All right, our final bit of news is another wild ride, and this is interesting because obviously, we found out because of his daughter's suicide that Zack Snyder bowed out of Justice League several weeks into the post-production process of the movie earlier this year in, I think, about April. And but obviously the news broke later than that. But he stepped out in April, and the job was taken over by Joss Whedon. So what we found out is that the reshoots have added up to basically the budget of a small independent picture. Well, not a small independent picture, probably a big one. I think it's like about the budget of Silver Linings Playbook.
It's like $15 million away from Deadpool budget. It's ridiculous.
It's insane. It's going to cost, or it cost, $25 million to do the reshoots. This sort of makes sense to me because there's obviously, I'm thinking that a lot of those reshoots involved heavy visual effects work. We know that involved in those reshoots was Ray Fisher, who plays Cyborg. And Cyborg's like basically an entirely visual effects creation. So obviously, if they needed to reshoot stuff with him and then redo those visual effects because it was a new scene, then obviously that took a lot of funding to do that, get him into the suit and all that. So and now, but what we found out, and this is kind of funny, kind of sad. It's a statement of studio contracts that are totally screwy. They've been messing with people's schedules. So Henry Cavill's, he is shooting the 6th Mission Impossible movie, and for that role, he needs a mustache. And because Sony, that's Sony, right? Yeah, Sony.
Paramount.
Oh, Paramount. I couldn't remember. One of those studios is going to go bankrupt. Either one of those. They would not let him shave it because he's in the midst of shooting that role. So they're going to have to digitally alter Superman's face to not have a mustache. Now, here's what I wonder. Why, and I guess I'm actually going to ask a question and then answer it because I pretty much know the answer. But this is just something I want to flesh out on the show. Okay, so I guess they've already shot scenes with him that are not being reshot, and thus they have to alter his face. I'm guessing that's what's going on, because otherwise, why couldn't they just, if they could just reshoot the parts where he doesn't have a mustache, maybe they could just have a mustached Superman. I don't know. Or ask Paramount if he can maybe, have some sort of a schedule where he grows a little bit of facial hair and then shaves the facial hair except for the mustache. I don't know. I feel like there could be better options than just, digitally, basically doing for his mustache what a lot of visual effects artists have to do for people's pimples, because that's essentially what it is. They're removing a feature of the face that is distracting and not part of the character or whatever. and it just seems weird to me. But otherwise, there have been some other people that have had their schedules interrupted. I think that the exceptions are Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot. I don't think they have anything going right now, but other than that, I mean, it's just kind of interrupting everybody's schedules. Ezra Miller's got to shoot Fantastic Beasts, and those are Warner Brothers properties, but so it should be easier. But then you have Henry Cavill shooting another movie for another studio, who's they're not going to give up time to another studio. That's not going to happen. So this is very interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how Justice League plays after all of this. Whether it's a complete mess, feels like it has a bunch of reshoots. I don't know. These kinds of movies seem to always have that signature of messiness a little bit, and Suicide Squad certainly had that. So I don't know. It's interesting. We'll get to what I think about the trailer in a bit, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I think the funniest part is the fact that Warner Brothers had to call Paramount and go, we need Henry Cavill for Superman right now, and they go, hell nah, fam. He's got a mustache for a movie that we're shooting right now. You got to have him with the mustache, fam. And so Warner Brothers is like, well, fuck me sideways. We got to digitally remove that shit. So I'm sure that was an interesting phone call to make. But
yeah. I want to kind of reverse time and get into somebody else's mind and behind their eyes and be in the room during that phone call.
Oh, I know. It's probably got to be one of the best phone conversations of 2017 so far about Henry Cavill's mustache.
If anybody's listening to this who is involved in that phone call, which you're not, but if you are, please write this conversation in your memoir, because I want to know how it went.
It's so great. And, with good old Porn Man, because that's what he is with his stash, it's his porn stash. So Porn Man instead of Superman. Listen, for reshoots for me, I've always been of one mindset that's like, I really don't care what they do as long as that Joel and I go on November 16th, November 17th, whatever fucking day it is, we watch the movie and there it is. As long as they have a movie to show us, I could give a shit if they do reshoots until the week of. It's common practice, but this is one of those rare cases where it's intriguing because it's not common practice to have $25-ish million worth of reshoots. It's usually anywhere from about 5 to 10. So when you have 25, you're doing a lot of work. And Joel's right. Most of it will probably be visual effects heavy because Cyborg, he's pretty much 99.9% CGI except for the right side of his face. And of course, Ezra Miller as the Flash.
And even sometimes the right side of his face. We've seen that in the trailer where there are some shots where it's completely visual effects. So if there are action shots, especially, they have to, that's some money there. So everyone's got to be CGI for action shots, and of course the Flash his whole power is a CGI. The only one that would be okay with no CGI is probably Batman. That's because he's a regular dude with the suit. But 25 million-ish it's a lot of money, man. Hey, listen, if I want my liberal progressive mindset to come out, I wish that money would be spent towards something else, in this country, feeding people and education or whatever the fuck. But if you're gonna just pour it into a movie, it's whatever, man. It's not our business. It's theirs. But yeah, that just tells me they're gonna be doing a lot of different things. I don't know if they're gonna scrap most of the stuff. I don't know because I think the DGA rule is if you shoot more than 50% of the movie, you are a director. So if they scrap a lot of this movie and Joss Whedon directs more than 50% of the reshoots and he goes through post-production, there can actually be a vote at the DGA to see who actually gets credit. So that will be really cool to see. And although I feel like in most cases what happens there, and this is the same thing with Han Solo, I believe in a lot of cases, if it's enough reshoots and the vote is cast, it's usually shared credit. So we could have a credit of Joss Whedon and Jack Snyder. Wow, Zack Snyder. Joss Whedon and Jack Snyder.
Yeah, Jack Snyder sounds like a shitty dude that like makes like really bad alcohol.
Sounds like the next main character of like some really, really like super male video game.
Yo, man, my name is Jack Snyder. No, but like, I don't think that's going to happen. I think what Warner Brothers is probably going to do is Zack Snyder's probably going to get full credit, to be honest with you, and they're probably going to shoot probably just a hair under the minimum, just so they don't have to confuse that with the DGA. He will probably be full-on director credit, and they're probably going to give Joss Whedon screenwriter and or executive producer credit. That's probably what's going to happen.
Or a story credit.
Or story credit.
A story credit might be possible there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a co-director situation like Han Solo, but it could be. I don't know, but yeah, it's a lot of money. God damn, that's so much money. Like, that just sounds to me that's more than 50%. That sounds like a shit ton of reshoots. Like, and I'd be really funny if I want to know the actual budget for the digital removal of Henry Cavill's mustache. I want to know, like, what's the actual number in that budget? Like, is it like $6 million or something like that? They have to hire like each individual person for each individual hair on his mustache. And someone actually brought up a good point when I was listening to another podcast earlier this week, is that now that you know about the mustache story, that's all you're going to be concentrating on now. You're like, you're going to be watching the movie, you're like, I wonder if this is one of the shots they had to digitally remove it. So it's going to be slightly distracting just a little bit, but hopefully the movie's good to where I just get sucked into the story. But yeah, this is concerning, but like I said, as long as Joel and I sit down that weekend and we see a full movie called The Justice League, they can do reshoots literally the night before, and I would not give a shit. So, but the number thing is very, very alarming to say the least. That's why we decided to bring it up.
I mean, I'm with you on the idea of reshoots. You know, whatever the movie is that is shown to me, I'm gonna watch that as I would watch any other movie. You know, with the vague knowledge that, of course, some of this was reshot, but it wouldn't. It's not going to affect my my point of view. It's a movie. I'm going to watch it. But anyway, I've been talking for a while. You do the next bit of non-comic book news.
Perfect. All right, so this one will be short and simple because I highly doubt Joel even liked the sequel, because for the first one, he actually liked the other one that came out that year. So we're going to be talking about Angel Has Fallen, which is the third film in the kind of Olympus and London Has Fallen franchise, or the Has Fallen franchise. And this one's going to be set in Air Force One. And yeah, it's going to be crashing to the ground, and I'm sure Gerard Butler's going to have to fight whoever the fuck is trying to take it down. Listen, just to put it really simply, I never saw the first one, believe it or not, and I heard it was actually really good. I actually saw London Has Fallen, and I really enjoyed it. I know, sue me, right? It's not like the best movie in the world, but as a straight-up action film, I kind of enjoyed it. And it had a pretty interesting one-shot technique in it that I really enjoyed, even though the one in Atomic Blonde is way better, speaking of that movie. But London Has Fallen was still an enjoyable, kind of like ridiculous romp for me. It wasn't like anything that was atrocious, according to some people. But Angel Has Fallen, I kind of want to see it. Yeah, I actually have no issues with the announcement of a third one. If they make these movies as like a ridiculous action film, I don't care. Like, once they start like taking them seriously, that's when I'll be like, no, stick to what you know. And also with this piece of news, they actually have a director to it, and it is Rick Roman Woe or Wah or whatever, and he is the director behind Snitch, and that's his most notable one. Yeah, he hasn't really done much, so it's gonna be fun to watch a pretty much non-big budgeted dude tackle on these projects, because as we see from films like the Fantastic Four, you just hear horror stories of them bringing on these smaller directors and getting pushed around and stuff. So I don't know, we'll see how his style works out. But as far as this franchise, I still need to see the first one. But having a movie stuck on Air Force One, even though it's been done before, like in Air Force One, It's still a fun little premise that I've always enjoyed. With someone trying to take down, whoever the fuck is threatening the president or whatever. It's fun popcorn fodder for me. So I'm actually okay with this piece of news, and I will definitely see it when it comes out next year. Joel, what do you think about this? Are you hankering for another Has Fallen movie?
I have 3 thoughts.
Oh shit.
Three thoughts, and they're all very short. 1, I don't care. 2,
okay, thank you, folks. That will do it for this week's episode.
I don't care. 2, the only way I would care is if you actually took a feather out of the book of Air Force One, the movie, and cast Gary Oldman as the villain.
Yes.
That's the way I care. 3, can we please have a White House Down franchise? Okay.
Yeah, can we not, please?
No, dude. Okay, no.
Joel is one of the few people on planet Earth, living and breathing, that actually will stand up for White House Down.
Oh yeah, I am, because it's amazing. They need to. I mean, it's a comedy. It's a comedy movie. It is not a take it serious thing. And if you took it seriously, you're looking at it wrong. That movie is a comedy. It needs to have a Criterion release, a la Armageddon and The Rock.
Okay, Joel, you're getting way too ahead of yourself. You need to slow your roll, sir, before you get a little too drunk over there.
I really want White House Down again or something. I don't know.
Oh, God.
But, this I don't care. I honestly, White House Down kind of like killed me on ruined me on ever having any interest in anything being set on on Air Force One, because that movie basically was the be-all and end-all of uses of Air Force One, particularly how it was used. And I love that movie, but I don't like either of the Has Fallen movies. I actually like the second one slightly more than the first one, so whatever. But anyway,
so we can agree on that then.
Well, yeah, but it's not good. All right. Sorry. That's basically that. Speaking of action franchises.
Look at you. Joel is like, he's slowly graduating from like transition school. Like, it's amazing. Like, his segues, they're just getting stronger and stronger each week. And then, like, I almost get like a chub when I listen to him, because I'm like, Joel, you're doing such a great job.
Yeah, man. All right, so this is an interesting piece of news. All right, so John Wick has had, obviously the original movie, and then it had Chapter 2, which kind of expanded the world a little bit. And now they're going to expand it even further by, of course, making it into a cinematic universe. And it's going to be something called Ballerina, which is the last title I expected. Although that's really the spec script title, we don't know if that's going to change. But nevertheless, follows a young woman, I'm just reading this, raised as an assassin who goes on the hunt for the train killers that murdered her family. So obviously that's very John Wick, just, replacing a dog with a family. So, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be female-centric, and we need more of those right now for sure. And it's written by somebody named Shay Hatton. So that's interesting. I don't think that he's done anything really like super huge. He's had one on the blacklist for a while that is a comedy about the writing and directing of Maximum Overdrive by Stephen King, which is interesting. So anyway, this is neat. Certainly looking forward to this. I've liked both of the John Wick movies, and so I'm certainly interested in stuff from that universe. Fairly quick piece of news, but what do you think about it?
Yeah, I love it. I'm one of the few people that actually like John Wick Chapter 2 even more than the first one. I just love the whole kind of like idea of the world building of like all these assassins, and if they wanted to add the Atomic Blonde character in the universe, I will not oppose of it, even though I think it's a lesser film. But I enjoy like seeing all these different things that are not related to like any comic book or any like other prior source material, but they're really great at world building, and just like the Continental. Like, that's really great little pieces of world building. I love this kind of cat and mouse game that John Wick kind of has, and there's a style and such a flair to it that it's really inviting each time when these movies come out. So if they wanted to expand the universe and have something else, but also kind of like within there, I'm okay with that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I love this kind of new wave of like gritty, grounded, realistic type of hand-to-hand combat violence in these action films, a la John Wick 1, 2, and Atomic Blonde. I'm starting to love this kind of new wave that we have of assassin movies. Pretty much after the hype of like Jason Bourne has died down and whatnot, so we kind of have this new wave. I'm enjoying it so far. So give me more. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like these movies have had sort of a mid-90s flair to them. And I think that that's pretty neat, but also a modern sort of techno flair, which is neat. And so they're essentially mid-budget thrillers of the '90s, kind of moved to today. And I like that because I kind of want Hollywood to return to that. I'm sorry to say, as much as I enjoy, vaguely comic book stuff, I think this is sort of my bag, more than superhero movies. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty neat. All right, what's the next bit of news?
Well, it was something that was kind of surprising, and I kind of enjoyed it so much that when, because I'm I'm a friend of, not an actual friend, but like I'm a Facebook friend of one of these gentlemen, and I've actually met one of them. He's a secretive dude, and I've looked forward to anything he's ever touched, and that would be Mr. Simon Barrett. He is the writer of You're Next, The Guest, Blair Witch, and the upcoming The Temple, which we will get to in a little bit. And he's going to be teaming up with Fede Alvarez. Now, usually his director is Adam Wingard, who he pretty much has done those three that I've mentioned. But now Simon and Adam are starting to do kind of like, I mean, they're still going to work together, but they're still doing like, stuff on their own. Like, like I said, Simon wrote The Temple, and of course Adam Wingard went to go work on Death Note. So it's nice to see them kind of like work with different people, especially within kind of like the same kind of indie underground realm of like horror thriller directors. And Simon Barrett is going to be working with Mr. Fede Alvarez, like I said, and they're going to be doing a techno thriller, which is what it is listed as. And I know for a fact that this isn't fake news because Simon posted on his goddamn Facebook page, so that is a legit thing. So it looks like he's going to be writing the script. Fede's going to direct. I love this. Absolutely fucking love this. Listen, Simon Barrett has written some of my favorite like horror thriller movies in the past like 5 years or so. I absolutely adore Your Next. It's a really great twist on the home invasion type of horror thriller. The Guest is a really good kind of like modern rendition of like Halloween almost, with Dan Stevens playing Michael Myers basically. You can't kill that motherfucker. And then of course I actually am one of the few people that enjoyed the Blair Witch movie from last year, and that last like 10 to 15 minutes was some of the freakiest shit I saw all last year in any horror film besides The Conjuring 2. The Conjuring 2 will still be the best one from last year, but in terms of second kind of blockbuster horror, I really love the Blair Witch. I really did, and that last like mind fuck of a 10 to 15 minutes was awesome. I thought that thing was like just so well done in terms of direction and just sound design, editing, and really kind of immersing you into this like creepy ass like haunted house basically. But he's written some really good ones, and of course Fede Alvarez, I love the Evil Dead remake. Yeah, I fucking love it. I love the original with Bruce Campbell, do not get me wrong, but them giving it a try and trying to do it for a new era, I loved it. I had such a blast with it. It's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it's rich in colors while still being gory as fuck. It's amazing. And then, of course, he did Don't Breathe, which I really enjoyed as well. It came out last year. And believe it or not, ironically, Joel, I went to a drive-in for the very first time last year, and guess what the double feature was? It was Blair Witch and Don't Breathe. So it was a calling. It was a calling basically saying Fede Alvarez and Simon Barrett were going to work together. I think this is a great pair. Simon's going to bring whatever twist he's going to bring on this story. Fede's going to bring his style. I am looking forward to this. Sign me the fuck up, Joel. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to ask me what director could make a movie that is described as a techno thriller, I would say Fede Alvarez because it's just his style. He has, I wasn't a fan of Evil Dead, but that was on a screen, a script kind of level. I liked the style that he brought to it visually, and I was a big fan of Don't Breathe. So I think that he's got a really good eye. He has a good eye for violence, and stylizing that violence. I think that this is probably going to be a very violent movie. Let's just say that. And I've basically really liked Simon Barrett's screenplays. Your Next is on my top 10 of 2013, or I think it is. It's either on it or right outside it. It's a fantastic horror comedy. And then The Guest was really really stylish. I like Blair Witch. So this is a really good pairing. It's kind of perfect because they have similar energies. They don't flush their movies with too much like snarky, referential stuff. It's very clean, but very clean kind of, but stylish approaches to thrillers, and I think that this is kind of perfect. So whatever this is, I'm excited, and
and like I just want to say just kind of like a bragging thing because I don't have anything else going for my life except for my friendship with Joel. Two of my favorite like experiences ever with movies are actually with these two gentlemen. So I actually got to interview Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett for The Guest when they came to Dallas, and it was such a great experience just talking with these two guys. And I even said, I looked them point blank in the face, Joel, and I said, what is you guys' next project? You said that The Guest and your next are in the same universe. Are you going to make another movie within the same universe? What is your third movie going to be? And I got a laugh out of them. I said, is it going to be called The Guest is Next? And they chuckled, and they said, well, we can't tell you. And, of course, it was fucking Blair Witch, which was disguised as The Woods, those kooky motherfuckers. They kept it under wraps. And then, of course, Fede Alvarez, when I went to South by Southwest last year, I got a ticket for an untitled Fede Alvarez haunted house movie. That's what it said on the ticket. I walk in there. He comes out on stage. He's like, you guys are the first audience to see it. It's called Don't Breathe. Here you go. I was like, what the fuck? And so it was such an amazing reveal. And so both these gentlemen have given me two of my favorite experiences. And just them coming together, Joel, is just destined for greatness. You know what is also destined for greatness is the story that you're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, come on. All right, so I have been a huge fan of both How to Train Your Dragon movies.
Yeah.
And especially the first one. I know that people were probably expecting especially for me to say the second one, but actually the first one is on my top 10 of 2010. So anyway, and those movies have a composer by the name of John Powell who makes really epic, excellent scores. And he's going to be the guy to score Han Solo. And gosh, I am so excited for this. I mean, Michael Giacchino was one thing, or Giacchino, or however you say his name, scoring Rogue One was one thing because he's obviously one of the best right now. But John Powell is in that league, and he's not one that's on everybody's lips, and he's about to be because obviously whoever scores a Star Wars movie is going to be huge after that. And obviously, I'm not downgrading his career. I've just said, he's made some amazing scores, but now he's going to be a household name. Now his name is going to be recognized just alongside his scores, and I've loved his work across the board at this point. So, and he also did the Bourne movies, and he did Kung Fu Panda movies. Anyway, the guy is enormously prolific, and this is just his latest one. So I'm very excited to hear what he does. Particularly with the John Williams theme, because Michael Giacchino played with that a little bit. He was able to play with that and make it his own, and that's probably what's going to happen with John Powell. And I'm really excited because he's one of my favorites in the biz. So very excited.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about How to Train Your Dragon, it is an animation film, but it's also a very mature kids film, and it's a really great film for adults and whatnot. And when you have kind of like that high caliber, quality with, the writing and directing and the music, it comes together as a really epic piece, and it's an animated kids film. It's really bizarre, but that has to do something with that extra layer of really epic music that you would add to this type of like almost like Game of Thrones for kids story. And so having him do the Han Solo movie, that makes sense. I mean, you want to have someone that kind of captures this epic kind of galactic space opera tone. He's the right guy to do it. Now, I'm not really a composer guy. I know Joel is the more composer dude out of both of us, but I enjoy good scores when I hear them. And it does take me a while to like, grasp on to names and whatnot, like, oh, that person did that. But once I hear it, it's like I automatically know. So if you played like the theme of How to Train Your Dragon, I probably would recognize it, but I wouldn't be able to tell you who did it because, like I said, I'm not well versed in that category. But he sounds like a good choice.
And you might call this a hot take or a warm take or something, but for 2010, I know a lot of people have their kind of favorite score of the year, and it's a lot more iconographic than the How to Train Your Dragon score. Usually the answer is stuff like The Social Network and Tron Legacy and Inception. My favorite score of that whole year was How to Train Your Dragon, and that didn't even occur to me until I rewatched it in time for the second movie, and I just realized how much I love it. Honestly, like, it just occasionally pops up back into my head, just without, like every couple of months I'll just think of like some tune, and it just happens to be that one. And it's just because it's so memorable within the movie, and maybe not, isn't as iconic or well known as the other three that I just mentioned from that year, but it's my favorite score of that whole year. It's stunning work, and what he did to, grow that a little bit in the second one was very successful. So, I mean, this guy, again, he's one of my favorites. And of course, the Bourne series, I mean, that's an amazing score. So I just, I love that. And anyway, very exciting. All right, so that's the last bit of news, right? So
Correctamundo.
Yes. So what's your favorite, people? Mine, I gotta say, might be that John Powell's scoring Han Solo. That might be my favorite. So we saved the best for last, and at least in my case. But what's yours, Chase?
It's tough, but I horror is like my second favorite genre ever behind comedy, so I gotta go with the Fede Alvarez Simon Barrett story. I can't wait.
Admit it, Chase. It's the Angel Has Fallen sequel. I'm just kidding.
No, right. Joel. Bad Joel. Sit down.
All right, guys. So we're moving on to the trailers.
Oh my God! Are you guys ready for this? Because I don't have the right amount of like napkins to catch the jizz that I'm about to spew all over these trailers. Because some of these, Joel, just get me excited.
Yeah. No. I mean, I totally agree. So do you want to go ahead and start out with a Marvel trailer?
Oh yeah, we have to start out with it because I'm sorry, DC fans. I like the good old JL 4-minute trailer, which we will get to, but god damn it, Thor Ragnarok, motherfuckers, this is a trailer. This captured everything you would want in a Thor movie. It captured imagination. It captured the tone of Thor, which has this like sarcastic attitude to it, but also like this whimsical fantasy. Oh my god, some of these fucking images in the trailer were like paintings. They were ripped out of like Norse mythology, and you're like, this is a fucking comedy director, and he's making these like images look super beautiful. So it's gorgeous to look at. I love Cate Blanchett as Hela. She's gonna come wreck shop at Asgard. It looks like Thor and Hulk are gonna have a great relationship. Definitely bantering back and forth like they usually do, especially with the ending scene. I just loved everything about this trailer. I have no issues with it. It's like they hit all the right notes, and it just gets you jazzed up to see the movie. And I love the ending of the trailer when she's like, "You're the god of what?" And he like fucking slams down Joel, and he stands up slow, and he's covered in lightning, and his eyes are filled with lightning. You're like, hell yes, fucking hell yeah. So, and then of course that last shot of Hulk going after this giant demon. You're like, Jesus Christ, this is going to be amazing. And to go on top of that, there was an interview of Taika Waititi, the director of the film, and they asked him how long is this movie going to be, and he said the first cut that they put together is at a quick 100 minutes. So it actually might be the shortest Marvel movie we've ever had. And he said, I don't like to waste any time. I like to just kind of get in there, do my business, and get out and leave the crowd wanting more. So it sounds like there's going to be no filler, and it's going to be just like kind of balls to the wall insanity, especially when Ragnarok means apocalypse. So it's just going to be nothing but devastation on Asgard, and we're going to get to finally see what happened to Hulk and Thor during Civil War. So, Joel, I cannot praise this trailer highly enough. What did you think of it?
Oh, I can't wait, and I'll tell you, like, I love that news that it's going to be. I mean, I usually kind of dislike the news about movie length just because it's like whatever, but this news about the movie length was neat because, you know, it's going to be no filler. I feel like he probably made it with the intention of not having any deleted scenes. So that's going to be interesting. You might, you know, shave a little bit off here, but I feel like if it's 100 minutes right now, it'll probably, you know, polish out at about 95, 90, something like that, in which case it's going to be very, very short, concise, to the point, and I like that. And that sort of goes in line with the other movies in terms of the length because they've been two of the shorter ones in the universe. The Thor movies do not go on for very long. And this trailer is great. I mean, as a trailer, I obviously prefer the teaser, just as a piece of editing, you know, of advertisement editing. So I prefer that trailer, but of course I have no problems with this one either. It's a great trailer. This movie looks like so much fun. The color palette looks bright and colorful and rich. I'm a huge fan of Taika Waititi. I think both of his movies have been at least contenders for top 10 consideration. I don't think either of them made it onto my top 10 in any way, but in either of those years. But I just love that he's working on this, and I feel like we're going to get a director who's been given enough leeway. And probably I feel like this, in conjunction with the fact that he probably had a really good pitch to Marvel that was as concise as the movie is apparently going to be, that's why he was hired. You know, they saw somebody with a good, clean-cut vision, and he's clearly fulfilled that. And I can't wait. I mean, it looks like such a fun romp, basically. It looks like a romp. It's going to be a comedy, primarily, I think, despite, you know, Hella's involvement, and or however you say her name. Yeah, I mean, I love this cast. I love that we have Jeff Goldblum in a Marvel movie. It's just, anyway, everything about this movie is just very appealing to me.
Yeah, and I mean, Joel, just real quick before we move on, like, were you kind of like shocked as I was when some of those like beautiful shots, like beautiful cinematography was happening? I was like, this is from the same director, right? Like I was watching, I was like, because there was a few shots where Hela was like staring off into the clouds with like these fucking, like, I think it was horses like coming at her, and it was shot in this wide shot with like the action flowing diagonally, and it just looked like a goddamn painting. It looked so gorgeous.
Oh yeah, I mean, it gave me vibes of Peter Jackson's direction on the Lord of the Rings. In some cases where the action is all, you know, almost all of it is against green screen, but it doesn't look ugly. It doesn't look like it's just a bunch of matte paintings in the background. It looks visually stunning, and I feel like this is going to be a major contender for visual effects, like major contender. And I feel like all three of Marvel movies this year are, but I feel like this in particular is going to have a lot of really complex elements, visually speaking, and you know, specifically in the destruction of entire civilization like that. I mean, it's going to be very intense, a lot of fun, and anyway, I'm very excited for that. But I'll tell you, so moving from Marvel to DC. All right. So I made my thoughts known when the previous trailer for Justice League was released, that it kind of looked like a garbage fire to me. And I've also made it clear, you know, previously on the show, that for me personally, anticipation is not directly tied to the quality of a trailer. I can anticipate a movie that I think looks terrible from the trailer. And the reason is because, as much as we cover them on the show, trailers are kind of inconsequential. Like they're basically made by PR departments many of whom don't even actually have all of the movie to see in front of them. They are given kind of, points to bring across. Sometimes, they're given too much, as with the trailers where they give away too much. But nevertheless, again, the quality of the trailer and the anticipation I feel for the movie, they don't necessarily go hand in hand. So I'm very much looking forward to Justice League. However, they still haven't figured out a way to make a trailer that doesn't make it look like a garbage fire. Because I hated this trailer. I did not like this trailer at all. I think that this looks like a video game. Like visually speaking, I just think it looks visually ugly. I don't like the opposite of Thor Ragnarok is dark, dour visual effects that are constantly against a black background, and it's just something I'm getting tired of. Honestly, I was tired of that even in the climax of Wonder Woman. I felt like it was too darkly lit, and had a similar problem with Spider-Man: Homecoming. So I just don't like that kind of visual style anymore. And this movie basically seems to be made entirely of it, and that just is not very promising to me. But obviously, like I said, I'm still excited for the movie because it's going to be all of these characters together. That's obviously, irresistible to some degree. It's just I'm still waiting for a trailer that is a well-made trailer. Let's just say that. And that's the end of my thoughts.
Yeah, I obviously, if I had a gun to my head and we had to pick between Thor Ragnarok or Justice League and one's gone forever, I'm gonna pick Thor. And it's not because I'm not looking forward to Justice League, but I liked the Justice League trailer. I just wasn't blown away. It's like you said, like it's just an extension of the first one, the first trailer, and it does look like a video game in some spots. The CGI is a little too apparent, and the green screen is a little too noticeable. But I do like the chemistry between all the actors. I like Ezra Miller's kind of quippiness as the Flash. I love Gal Gadot's confidence. I love Ben Affleck's ferocity in the role. Jason Momoa as Aquaman looks like he's going to be a fan favorite. But Ray Fisher's kind of like the only one up in the air because I haven't really seen anything from him. I mean, he's a stage actor, so it's like I don't think many people have seen what he's done. So he's going to be kind of the wild card. I mean, everyone looks fine, like I said, and the action does look pretty cool. I mean, I'm not going to lie. One of my favorite shots in the trailer is when Aquaman was riding a parademon down a goddamn building and surfs out on it and just walks off as if it was nothing. That was kind of cool. But the trailer to me was just like Warner Brothers going, please don't worry about the reshoots. Here is this trailer. But for me personally, I liked it. Didn't hate it like Joel, but I also didn't love it. I would have to say that Thor basically won the trailers that day for sure, even though Justice League was a good attempt. And there was some really cool footage that we hadn't seen from the first trailer that was like, okay, that could be kind of fun to watch. And of course, at the end of the trailer, they tease Superman once again. So yeah, it is what it is. I'm still looking forward to it. Because I like I said, out of the 4 they've done so far, I like 3 of them. So obviously, I'm a fan of this universe, unless you're Suicide Squad. So I'm looking forward to it. But I honestly will have to see what the fan reaction is, see what the critic reaction is when these reviews start coming out and whatnot. And if they absolutely hate it, I'm probably gonna like it because that's usually how it's been with most of the DC movies. And if they love it, I don't know. I might be a little worried at that point. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. So the next trailer, Joel, I'm thinking that we should jump to another Comic-Con trailer. That would be I'm gonna go with a little Netflix action because I know Joel and I are excited to talk about this one. So Netflix had their panel, and of course, they did release a Defenders trailer, but they kind of already released one. The only difference in this one was that, Sigourney Weaver was a little bit more present. It was a cool trailer, that's fine. But the trailer that we had not seen yet, because the only trailer prior to this was a very vague teaser trailer with a bunch of cool shots, and that was about it, is the Stranger Things Season 2 full trailer. Oh my God. Get here October. What are you waiting for? I want the summer to just go die off already. I want the fall to happen so I can get Jigsaw and Season 2 of Stranger Things. But no, this trailer is amazing. It takes a more darker route than the first one. The first season it's very, kind of Stand By Me-ish, where it's, a bunch of kids trying to figure out this shit and this, like, supernatural being and whatnot. And, like, of course, at the very end, everything's, oh, cool, everything's solved. But this one looks like it's going to take more of a psychological, darker route. And it really is going to play with the horror, especially with Will, what he's having to endure. I'm not going to spoil anything, but he's enduring something, and it looks like it's really freaking him out. As I would be too if I was his age. Like, I'd be freaking the fuck out if I had that thing that he has. So I love the progression of the story. It looks like it's going to get more epic with the Upside Down and the monsters that might kind of crawl through. And all the actors look like they just kind of fit back into their role. Didn't really waste any time. It looks like their chemistry is all right there. Once again, Winona Ryder looks great. David Harbour. I know Sean Astin's in this season. So, yeah, just from the trailer alone, it looks like it's going to take a more darker route, a more epic route, and I cannot fucking wait. Joel, spin that shit, because I know you're excited to see it too.
Oh man, yeah. I've sort of talked before about how I just don't have time to binge things, but I binged all of season 1 in one day. So this is my jam. I love Spielbergian kind of Amblin entertainment about kids, dealing with supernatural stuff. It's my jam. I am one of those normie basic bros who still loves the Goonies. So I love that movie, and I think this series has definitely been in that vein. With danger and menace and suspense and intrigue. I love it, and I love the first season. I thought that basically every minute worked. I love the ambiguity of the final episode. I love the fact that we're going to be able to see more from this universe, and that we get one of the Goonies in here, Sean Astin, and I just cannot wait. It looks so good. The use of Thriller in that trailer is just about, because I love Michael Jackson, and Thriller is a masterpiece, and I think that was kind of perfect. Vincent Price's narration from that music video, and I just love it. I just cannot wait. Get here October. I'm probably gonna watch the whole season in one day again. I can tell you that right now. I'll probably just make a point to, like, if I'm not working on the 27th. Then I might just take that day off from everything else and just watch that, because I'd be surprised if I didn't. In fact, it's a Friday, right? So I think I might have that off anyway. So I should be able to just watch it. But yeah, I mean, it just looks spectacular, and can't wait to see Winona, whatever I'm trying to say. Okay, I've had a long weekend. Anyway. So
just real quick, like, do you remember that one shot in the trailer where, like, Will is, like, breaking down, and, like, that was the moment in the trailer where I was like, wow, they're gonna really up their acting in this season. Like, I'm not saying their acting was terrible in the first season, it was really great, but it looks like they're really gonna push these kids into really giving, like, even better performances in this season.
Yeah, it's sort of the same trajectory that the Harry Potter trio had. Through the series, they got a little more serious, a little better at what they did. Obviously, for some of these people, it was their first job. The first season was so, or their first job where they had speaking roles or whatever. And so they were. And if they were untested and that was their untested performances, then that was pretty impressive. It's really impressive. Speaking of Spielbergian stuff, all right, this is our last Comic-Con trailer. So I basically said with the Justice League trailer that I've come to dislike the visual aesthetic of dark backgrounds with visual effects, using visual effects with a dark background. And there's an exception to that. That exception is when a great director like Martin Scorsese with Hugo, or Ang Lee with Life of Pi, or what have you, or really our next director with anything he's done involving visual effects. But try to use other people as my examples. When great directors take on this kind of new, big, blustery visual effects worlds and all that, and give their own visual kind of aesthetic to it. And that certainly feels like it's going to happen, because we have a combination here of Steven Spielberg and his usual cinematographer, Janusz Kaminski, taking on Ready Player One. This is a novel from Ernest Cline that in the trailer, it's really weird because in the trailer it calls it the Holy Grail of pop culture, but I've read sections of the book and it's actually kind of awful. It's not a good book from what I've read, and from what I've heard, it's the whole thing is bad. But this is Spielberg. I don't care. It could be anything from Spielberg, and I'd be excited for it. So this one basically has this character in the future. He basically enters this virtual reality in which he kind of can play as an avatar who, travels through a bunch of pop culture points. So we see tiny glimpses here of like Freddy Krueger and the DeLorean and orcs and all of that, the Iron Giant, all of that. And I got to tell you, this this is my bag. I love this trailer. I cannot wait. I know it looks like a big visual effects mess or whatever. I don't think it looks like a mess. I think it looks thrilling and visually stunning. I can't wait to see what Spielberg and Kaminski do with these visual effects. Just visually, they've worked together on big sci-fi productions like this before, like AI and Minority Report and War of the Worlds and all that. I think that they are a perfect pair to take on something like this. And you know what? I really, really want to have happen. I want this to come out, and then I want people to realize, some studio to realize, that the project that he was previously attached to should happen again, and that was Robopocalypse, which was an adaptation that was floating around as a possibility a few years back. That was the adaptation of a novel that's super, super violent, but it's a great read. It has a lot of sci-fi elements that Spielberg has had, history with robots kind of learning human interaction and human emotions and basically kind of becoming humanoid. I want that to happen. But nevertheless, Ready Player One looks terrific. I can't wait to find out what Chase thinks about it because, again, we don't tell each other. So I'm looking forward to this tremendously. It comes out in March.
Yeah, I just real quick to kind of start off, I'm sure Joel and I are super proud that good old Ty Sheridan, the lead of Ready Player One, hails from our state that we currently are in right now, so that's kind of cool. And I've met the kid, and he was just down to earth, and this was right before he did Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse and X-Men, and now this movie, so he definitely blew up after when I met him for sure, but I love it. It was a bonkers as fuck trailer, but in the best way possible. That one scene where all these cars are like fucking piling on each other, like that was the insanity that I wanted from this type of movie, where it's kind of like a Tron or like a Wreck-It Ralph almost, where like this character can like dive into like this kind of like fictional world and whatnot. It almost kind of reminded me of what was the movie we just Valerian? What Sergeant Valerian did in one scene. But we're not going to discuss that movie. Anyways, Ready Player One. I never read the book. I believe my roommate has it. I will probably read it at some point. But it sounds like it's just going to be, like I said, just crazy, out there, really gorgeous to look at. Yes, it is a little CGI heavy, but that didn't really bother me that much because I thought it fit in with what they were doing, because he's transported to like this virtual reality pretty much. Like, you're going to have this CGI heavy looking movie. I know a lot of people were complaining about the look of it and said it looked too much like a video game and whatnot. That didn't bother me at all. I actually think that the Justice League trailer looked more like a video game than Ready Player One did. Maybe because, like I said, it just fits in with the actual story. So, Justice League, that's their universe. So when their universe looks like a computer, it's going to take you out of it. But when Ty Sheridan is transported into this world, totally makes sense. But yeah, I loved all the little Easter eggs. Seeing Freddy Krueger get sliced, or the Iron Giant like walk up. Oh my God. Since they have a relationship, I really hope Vin Diesel is still the voice of the Iron Giant. Because they work together on Saving Private Ryan. So if Spielberg can call him up and be like, yo, Diesel, can you lend your Groot voice to doing Iron Giant again? And he's just like, Superman. And he's like, holy shit, I got him. So that'd be really cool if he got Vin to come back. But
I can imagine that what Spielberg did, and going back to the look of the movie for a bit, I think that you're right in that. I think honestly that Spielberg probably, kind of got a handle on the material, then maybe looked at a lot of video games and said, okay, well, this is going to look hyper stylized if it's a video game. So I feel like the people complaining about the look of the movie are kind of going about it the wrong way, because Justice League is the movie that you want to go after looking like a video game. That doesn't need to, because it takes place in some representation of reality-ish. This is an actual virtual reality, so it kind of needs to look hyper stylized and visually exploratory. Kind of the characters don't need to look real. The orc, for instance, we see shooting a gun, doesn't look like a real orc that's going to be existing with anything that's real life, because it's part of a virtual reality program. So I think that that's perfect, and I think that he kind of knew we got to do this as a hyper stylized, very sort of a mix between muted and sharp colors, all that. That's how video games are right now, and I think that was kind of perfect.
Yeah, I mean, and just real quick, the only two bad things about the trailer, and these are just curiosities, or not, one's a curiosity, more is holy fuck, we have to wait, is when they flashed the next year May slot. I was like, you son of a bitch, we gotta wait so long for this movie. So that was the one gripe, was just the release date. It needs to come sooner.
March.
Or excuse me, it's still a long way away.
It is, yeah.
And the second thing is, I've never read the book, but I don't know what pop culture figures are in that book, because everything we saw in the trailer, I believe, is all Warner Brothers own characters, kind of like what we saw at the end of Lego Batman movie. So I'm wondering if they actually licensed out to get certain characters that might have been prominent to Ready Player One that they don't own. So I'm just wondering how all that worked, because in the trailer that we just saw, they were all Warner Brothers characters. So I'm wondering, like I said, if there's another one that was so pivotal to the story and they were like, oh shit, we don't own that character. I'm wondering if another studio or another company licensed that out to them to accommodate a story need. So yeah, that was kind of on my mind while I was watching the trailer, was what other non-Warner Brothers characters did they get?
Yeah, I'd be interested to find that out. It's possible. I kind of wonder if perhaps Ernest Cline wrote the book with this kind of, possible movie deal, in which case, if that was the case, then possibly he had to kind of pick a studio, and then they licensed the rights to use those characters in a work of fiction, and then they were going to be making a movie. I don't know, though. I mean, obviously that's a big question, because Disney's kind of a brick wall in terms of, they kind of don't let you do that. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. All right, so take the next trailer, Chase.
Wait. Oh yeah, you did. Guys, it's late. It's late over here, Central Time. If you were listening to us on a later day, we usually don't record at night, so that's why my wires aren't working properly. So the next trailer, because believe it or not, Joel, I'm actually going to leave good old You'll Float 2 at the end. That's the last one we're going to talk about. So my final one, yes, before we get to that one, the main one for the week is The Temple. Speaking of Simon Barrett, and this one is kind of like a bunch of people going out to this it almost felt like the ruins a little bit, where they go out to this ancient civilization and shit starts happening, creatures, yada yada yada. But the reason why I want to bring it up is because of Simon Barrett. I'm not going to lie, the trailer looks like garbage. I don't like it. Looked like a generic horror film to me. It didn't look like anything of substance. However, I said the same thing about You're Next, and that movie surprised the hell out of me because Simon Barrett twisted the home invasion kind of genre on its head. So I believe, I could be wrong, I believe though this trailer was a representation of a marketing company going, yeah, we're going to make this into a generic horror film. But once I saw from the writer of, You're Next and Blair Witch, Simon Barrett, I was like, he's got something up his sleeve. So he's probably going to play with some type of twist for this movie or something different that we haven't seen before. And that's why I'm interested. Not in the movie itself or the premise or the acting. It's just, like I said, I did not like the trailer one bit. But he gives me that one inkling of hope because, like I said, I had the same issue with You're Next, and I ended up loving it. So I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. But that trailer did not look good. But Simon Barrett gives me, he gives me cause to actually look forward to the temple whenever I do watch it. So, Joel, what did you think of this trailer?
Yeah, I mean, I basically had the same thoughts, including the ones about You're Next, where I thought it looked awful, and it surprised me quite a bit to the point that I gave it a solid A. And so basically the same, reaction to this trailer. I kept watching it. I was like, Simon Barrett's a part of this? What?
Well, okay, so when you were watching it, were you really curious as to why I put it on the notes?
Yeah, I was like, what is going on, Chase? But the thing is, I didn't want to ask you because that would partly, reveal my thoughts. But, it looks bad, but like you, I'm curious to see what Simon Barrett can bring to it.
That's exactly why I put it on the list, because I was like, Simon Barrett, you crafty motherfucker, you probably have a good movie in there.
Yeah. All right, so like you, I think I'm going to go to one trailer before kind of a main event trailer, and this one is LBJ. This is a biopic about LBJ, and this one stars Woody Harrelson, who looks remarkably unlike Woody Harrelson. He plays Lyndon Baines Johnson, and it's going to be a biopic following his presidency. Yep.
I mean, yeah, there's really nothing more you can say. It's literally like him starting out, him going against Kennedy assassinated. You guys know the story of history. Then he becomes president. So, I mean, that's what the trailer basically laid out was the whole fucking movie.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like anything special. It's sort of like the Darkest Hour trailer recently, where it's just like, okay, I mean, all right. I was a presidential nut as a kid, so obviously the 4-year-old in me who memorized everything about presidents is excited for it, but as a trailer, it's just kind of blah. They basically give away everything that's of interest about this movie, and I mean, not like intentionally. It's just kind of inherent in the story. Lyndon Baines Johnson becomes president because somebody else is assassinated. That's the story of his presidency. So
yeah,
other than
it looks
other than the very questionable, and I'm not gonna get into this at all, but other than the very questionable potential involvement of him or maybe elements surrounding him in JFK's death, and I fully believe that there are questions about that. Other than that, there's basically nothing really notable.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like going to be a biopic about his life, and I feel like this is basically just going to be another JFK assassination movie, almost like unintentionally. Because most interesting point of his presidency, other than the fact that he kind of sort of started the Vietnam War through his actions, or continued it, or whatever. It's just not a very interesting presidency. There's a lot of interesting stuff surrounding his presidency that I'd like to see, but just the story about LBJ himself, he's not a very interesting person. So
yeah, because that's the whole story of his presidency is on the crutch of JFK's assassination. So it's like, you're right. It's not going to really be about him. It's going to be about the assassination, and that's the only thing interesting about his presidency.
Yeah, and not to mention like the president after him. So it's everything in that era just kind of happened because of because of JFK. So it's interesting, I guess. It's also interesting that this is Rob Reiner.
Yeah, that's what the weird thing was Rob Reiner's name attached to it, because I didn't even know he was making this. And hell, I didn't even know Woody Harrelson was in a movie like this. So this trailer kind of came out of nowhere.
I think I heard like a while ago that Woody Harrelson was supposed to be playing LBJ, but that's all I heard. And then I didn't hear anything about it, and then suddenly it's the trailer. So that happens sometimes. But anyway, go to your main event trailer.
Yeah, so guys, I want you to just realize that I've watched this trailer probably 15, 20 times, and just seeing Bill Skarsgård in Atomic Blonde, which is a great segue into the review when we get to it. When I saw him on screen in that movie, I was like, oh my god, I cannot wait to see him as Pennywise. Because this trailer, the finally full trailer, because what we saw was kind of like, it was like a really extended teaser trailer. This is kind of like their first like full trailer that they want to put out as their kind of like first official trailer from Warner Brothers. And so this is what premiered at Comic-Con, and people that also attended the event got to see a couple clips. One of which they described as the kids are going throughout the woods and Pennywise is like holding a baby doll arm or whatever. It's fucking weird shit. However, this trailer is so goddamn good. I never saw the 2013 Mama from Andy Muschietti, the director. However, I kind of want to go back and watch it, even though people say it's whatever, because the visual style in this trailer was mind-blowing. Every single quote-unquote jump scare got me. Every single time. And even when it wasn't a jump scare and it was just casually Georgie by the sewer and Pennywise would come up with the awesome lighting that was covering half of his face, and you could see like the glistening of his eyes, and you just see his mouth in the light, and he's just like, come here, Georgie. It's like, it's creepy shit. Like, so the cinematography in this was mind-blowingly good. Like, it's really effective when it comes to horror films in general. And so when you can have wonderful cinematography and different kind of camera techniques and editing techniques, it can be really effective. And this trailer got me from start to finish. I love the way Pennywise looks. I love the way he's being portrayed. I love the way he sounds. I love the kids involved. They look like they're really going to be scared shitless. Like, it was an amazing progression in the trailer, because at the beginning, they're like, these innocent little kids are just kind of palling around and hanging out, kind of like, when we were kids. And then as the trailer progresses, they're just like, did you see it? The clown. And it's like, you could definitely tell, like, the fear has struck within their hearts. And every single time one of the kids interacted with Pennywise in the trailer, it was so well done in terms of the scare and the creepiness and the fear that just struck my heart. And I was like, this was such a good trailer. Like, I'm telling you, I watched it like 10 times, and like each time when fucking Georgie was looking down the sewer and Pennywise just casually comes up and he's just like, hello there. And it's like half of his face is covered, and it's just brilliant camera placement and lighting techniques, and it was so effective, and it worked. And I cannot fucking wait for this movie, Joel. I cannot believe that one of my most anticipated for the rest of the year involves a clown as a serial killer. What the fuck is happening? And after watching this, I cannot wait for part 2 next year. I'm already looking forward to part 2, and I haven't even seen part 1 yet. So this trailer did everything right. It is creepy as fuck. I cannot wait for it to give me nightmares. I cannot believe any of these kids don't have trauma from the set, because it looks like Bill Skarsgård is going to really fucking bring it. I'm done. Joel, like, this whole episode, I'm done. Because this was like the highest point for me for the entire week. I absolutely love this trailer, and I cannot wait. And it actually comes out in less than a month and a half. It's so close. Like, it's so close. I can taste it. Of course, we got to get through the other Stephen King hump, Dark Tower, first before we get to that one. But whatever. I'm looking forward to it. One of my most anticipated. Joel, take it away.
Well, I'll tell you the reason that the cinematography looks amazing. It's because it's the cinematographer of the one of my favorite films of last year, The Handmaiden. This guy knows what he's doing. He's got a way with symmetry in his cinematography, and I can't wait to see how he uses long shots, because that was a specialty of his. And I totally agree about everything regarding this trailer. It looks genuinely terrifying. It doesn't just look spooky ooky or whatever. It looks genuinely terrifying, like it's going to get to the heart of what is so scary about Pennywise. And I totally agree. I did see Mama. I saw it in theaters. It's not like enormously special, but I did recommend it. I think that Andy Muschietti's got a real eye for staging for staging kind of usual horror tropes. He's really good at that. So, I loved everything about this trailer. It looks terrifying. Bill Skarsgård looks unnerving. The voice that he uses is just about the creepiest thing. That little high-pitched whine kind of.
Oh, it's amazing. It's so good. Like, I'm telling you, the first reveal in that fucking sewer is genius.
Oh my God. Yeah, I can't wait. And yeah, I'm super, super, super excited for it. So our last trailer, this is the last trailer, right? Yeah, last trailer is Suburbicon. This is an odd one. So this
yeah, to say the least.
To say the least, to a fault. Also, I'm going to get into that in a second. So this one comes from George Clooney, as in he is the director of the film. He's not in it, as far as I can tell, unless he is a cameo or something. I don't know, but he's the director. This one has a pretty stacked cast. It's got Matt Damon headlining it, and the basic premise is sort of like George Clooney's going with sort of a Coen's kind of Serious Man meets Burn After Reading feel, mixed with the X-Files episode known as Arcadia, in which a closed-off society or a closed-off kind of community has the outward appearance of calmness and pleasantness, but really there's a lot of truly screwed up stuff going on underneath. And this one, in this case, it seems to be like a murder mystery, or like sort of a breadcrumb murder mystery. And I got to tell you, that's where I have a problem. It looks like it takes this really great premise and does like the least interesting thing with it. That's just the impression from the trailer I get. It's a great trailer, especially the last shot.
It's so funny. So funny.
Human escaping on, well, let's just say a mode of transportation, and it's just really funny. It does look like this is going to be one of. It looks sort of like a Matt Damon performance that kind of recalls The Informant. I don't know if you saw that one, Chase, but that's one of my favorites of his from Steven Soderbergh. And anyway, it looks really interesting in terms of the setting. I just have that weird asterisk with the premise, which I couldn't be less interested in, unless it's just hiding a lot of really intriguing stuff. But nevertheless, good trailer. Definitely interested in seeing it. Comes out in October. So this is going to be one of those that tries for probably like screenplay, maybe some acting stuff. I can't imagine it would really go far beyond that, but it's certainly going to be an Oscar player. They're positioning that, with the release date. So intrigued.
Yeah, Joel, this is why I love you, and this is why we will eventually get married one day in whatever state we live in, because I was thinking the exact same thing while watching it. I was like, dude, this is like Burn After Reading meets A Serious Man. And the whole time, I had no idea the Coen brothers were a part of the script writing process, because it said, from director George Clooney, it's like, okay, I know that he's directed stuff before. This is nothing new. It's got a Coen brothers flair to it. Maybe he picked up on that working with them a few times. So I was just like, oh, maybe he's kind of picked up some of their attributes as filmmakers. No, they were actually directly involved into the movie when I saw the end of the credits. But I
think they wrote the first draft, or the first, like the kind of the first thing that Clooney and Grant Heslov kind of went with. Uh-huh. I believe that they were the final screenwriters, the ones that the shooting script was Clooney and Heslov's, but
correct.
But the Coens were involved early on.
Yeah,
for sure.
I enjoyed the trailer. I actually agree with Joel. I don't really care for the murder mystery aspect. I realize that this is not like a new idea where like you have this like pitch perfect, like squeaky clean, like suburban town, and then like there's actually some dark shit underneath. Like that's not like anything that's new in terms of storytelling. To be honest with you, if they just would keep it as like a kind of a pitch black dark comedy like they did with Burn After Reading, I probably would enjoy it more, and that's probably what it is. But
and then it'll make my top 10 this year because Burn After Reading made my top 10 of 2008. So
yeah, no, I really enjoy Burn After Reading quite a bit. It's a delicious dark comedy. Like with that scene with Brad Pitt in the closet, I'm telling you, it still makes me laugh every single time because if you pause right before the event happens, his face he looks like a kid in the candy store, and it's absolutely divine. However, I really hope they go kind of the Burn After Reading route and make it like I said, just go flat out and just make it a dark comedy. I'm cool with that. But the whole murder mystery thing, it's not really, it wasn't really clicking for me, but I do like the visual style of it. I think the performances are all on point. Matt Damon looks like he's having a lot of fun. Definitely reminds me of his informant role. I didn't see the movie, but I worked at the theater at the time, and I would poke my head in and out and just kind of like, see a couple scenes here and there, and, all I recognized was he really committed to the role because he gained a lot of weight. But for this one, he looks like he's gonna be just a blast to watch. Julianne Moore, I feel like I haven't seen her in like 10 years. And then I don't think I've ever seen. I gotta be honest with you, I don't think I've ever seen a George Clooney directed movie. So this will probably be my first one for sure.
I love Night and Good Luck, and
I heard that was great.
I was a pretty big fan of The Ides of March. I think those are the two that I've seen. And the Monuments Men, which I completely forgot about because it's a completely forgettable movie. But
yeah, I've actually never seen one, so this will probably be my first introduction, which is fine because, like I said, it's going to have that Coen Brothers flair to it, so it's going to kind of ease me into his other movies. So I'm totally on board, and I think it's kind of refreshing when you see like a big name like actor direct a movie and he's not in it. Like, he's actually just taking a step back, doing everything behind the scenes, and just letting Matt Damon kind of take over. And I
think this is the first case of that because he was in all of the other ones. There was even all the way back to the Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which I didn't see. I need to because it's got a screenplay from Charlie Kaufman. He was in that one, and then he was in Good Night and Good Luck, one of the main characters. And then Leatherheads, I didn't see, but he was in that. He's been in everything to some degree. So unless he shows up like in a cameo in this, which I can't imagine he would, then this will be the first one where he's just going to be behind the camera, which is an interesting tack to take for sure.
Yeah. Right. So I mean, I was just going to say that like I said, it's kind of just refreshing. Like, I understand that actors and actresses have big egos. Hell, I would do the same thing as them. I would totally like direct myself in the main role and pull like a Ben Affleck or whatever. And sometimes it works, and you can be Best Picture winner and whatnot. But I like the trailer. But the story, like you said, just kind of whatever. But anyways, that is the trailers for this week, guys. What was your favorite one? Please comment down below. This one's tough, but. Actually, it's not tough. I just lied to myself because Thor Ragnarok is a wonderful trailer. Stranger Things Season 2. But, Joel, I don't know what's up with me lately, but I'm just looking forward to it. I'm just looking forward to that fucking movie. So that trailer won it for me, all because of Bill Skarsgård's portrayal as the killer clown. So that is my favorite. Which one are you picking?
I'm picking Stranger Things Season 2.
Hey, listen, that's okay. There's plenty of great ones on this list, but listen, when you can nail a horror movie right with me, I'm gonna praise you. It's just the way it goes. All right, so let us know down below what you thought. And now, guys, this is the only podcast in the history of the internet where we can talk about bullshit in the movie world for 2 hours and still keep going. No, I'm glad that you guys are continuing to listen because now we are done with the news and the trailers, and we're going to jump right into the main review of what you all came here for. Hopefully you stuck around, which was our review of Atomic Blonde. Joel always kicks it off with the plot synopsis and just describing it because he's more articulate than I am, and of course who's in it, who directed it, and all that jazz. So Joel, can you explain to the audience out there, the lovely audience, and myself, what is Atomic Blonde and why? What's going on with this one?
Yeah, so this is the new film from director David Leitch, who was a co-director on the first John Wick, and while Chad Stahelski, his partner on that movie, went on to do the sequel, he came onto this original product. Not original, actually, but it's based on a graphic novel. I just lied. Anyway.
We're off to a great start.
We are. This one stars Charlize Theron. It takes place, surprisingly enough, I did not know this before I went to see the movie, in the Cold War. And this one follows a female assassin for the seemingly for MI6, and she's kind of it actually takes place in the month of my birth, which is interesting because I was supposed to be born on the day of the big event that surrounds this movie, which is the tearing down of the Berlin Wall. And she plays a female assassin who is asked to retrieve a list of, like people. Basically, it's a MacGuffin. It doesn't really matter what the list is, but or maybe it does. Maybe it does. Maybe it does matter. Maybe it matters a little more than it should, and I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, so this one stars Charlize Theron as the main woman. James McAvoy is one of her partners along the way. You got Sofia Boutella as a contact in France. You got John Goodman and Toby Jones killing it in interrogation framing device. So this is an interesting one. Chase, what are your initial thoughts? Because I actually am going to just say it right now. I'm actually going to start us off with thoughts on the movie, and the reason is because I don't have a simple one. So I was wondering, do you have just like simple, quick thoughts initial?
No, I mean, like what we said earlier in the show is that I am always a fan of like I said, like this new wave kind of like gritty assassin violence that we're seeing in these films. And so when you have one of the co-directors of John Wick and the upcoming director of Deadpool 2, I'm going to be interested in whatever the hell you throw at me. And looking at the trailers, I remember when we were talking about them a while back, I like Charlize Theron. I think she is a very capable woman that can deliver not only her stunts in a very badass and confident quality, but also provide some really kind of subtle, nuanced, kind of dramatic, emotional weight. So I know that she can carry both. And the trailer intrigued me just from, like I said, one of its co-directors being of John Wick and applying that fight style to her in this movie. I was looking forward to it for sure. So, are we gonna jump into this, or what were your initial thoughts?
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and jump into my full thoughts because I just like my initial thoughts. Once I get on this roll, I'm not going to stop. So.
Oh God damn it, Joel! Joel, we can't record all night.
I know. I'm just kidding. So here's the thing. I was in the same boat. I thought that it looked really stylish. I was a fan of John Wick. I think that he's a solid action director, and so it kind of surprised me that this was actually 3 movies in one. And so the first level is not even an action movie, I find. There are action sequences, but the movie is not driven by them, so I can't really call it an action movie. This is a thriller. And it is a thriller involving a lot of, hand-to-hand combat and all that. But it is actually driven by the setting of the movie, which is in the Cold War. So, of course, the plot is actually driven by the elements that we usually apply to for Cold War thriller. This is basically the John Wick answer to Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, in which we have a lot of details regarding hidden identities and, like I said, the list, which is a MacGuffin. And MacGuffins usually drive these kinds of things because the object itself isn't super important, although in this case I think it's a little more important than it should be. But it does drive the characters to a specific goal. and in terms of the storytelling. So then the second layer is the action movie, which the action here is really impressive. There's an extended one take fight that becomes an extended one take car chase that is absolutely thrilling. There's a lot of terrific choreography in these action scenes, and it's kind of based on Charlize Theron's performance as this very stoic, solid presence as this character named Lorraine Broughton, and obviously, she's perfect for this role. It's such a Charlize Theron role. It's not even funny, especially considering this is the person who was in Mad Max Fury Road. It's a very similar kind of role where she's having to repress a lot of feelings because she's an assassin, so that's kind of part of the job. And there's the physicality element to it that is pretty stunning as well. There's the fights are knocked down, drag out. They are not, the pretty it pretty successfully kind of interrupts the idea that fights have to be clean and that the characters are all superheroes who don't get injured, because at some point in that big, long one-take fight, both people involved in it, or both the main people involved in it, are dragging their bodies to be able to do anything at all. And it's kind of funny to see in a way, not in an actual funny way, but it's just kind of funny to see after so many movies, including the John Wick movies, really, where, if there is grunting and groaning, it's very, very minimal. And so, then other times they're not. So that's the second level, and it's very successful as an action movie. It's, fairly intriguing as a conspiracy thriller or a spy thriller. But then you get to the third level, and this is the thing that surprised me. And I'm going to use a very weird example to tell why I cannot recommend this movie. And I'm just kind of coming out with it. I think it's okay, but I just can't quite recommend this movie. So this third level is very weird because I didn't expect this in what all intents and purposes looked like the female John Wick. This is a very political movie. In a very specific region and in a very specific era, this is a movie that is set against Cold War angst. So there's one scene that is going to be sort of, I guess, ignored or looked over because of what's happening in the foreground, but it's what's happening in the background that intrigued me more. And it's set at a movie screening of the movie Stalker, which is a 1979 film directed by Andrei Tarkovsky that I'm just going to go into the plot just a little bit because it's a very complex movie, but it's basically about these three men who walk into a series of mazes. One's a philosopher, I think, or like a professor or something. One's a scientist, and then the third one's their guide through this maze. And the whole point of that movie was to basically comment on Russian angst at the time, which was in the late 70s. There was a lot of, like I said, angst, just a lot of paranoia about. And the movie was made to comment on that. And like that movie, which used genre elements, specifically sci-fi ones, to comment on that paranoid angst, this one does the same thing with an action thriller. And I just found it very strange because as it went on, I felt like there was something hollow in what it was trying to say. And it was very much trying to say this stuff. And it was very much trying to confront the Cold War as this entropic kind of terror that's existing over the heads of the characters, to the point that every 5 minutes we get some sort of reference to the tearing down of the Berlin Wall. What that means for both sides of Berlin at the time, and the bulk of the story takes place as that's happening. And I just found myself wondering what the point of that was. What's the point of trying to confront that through this methodology? And I know that I'm just like increasingly sounding like a hipster douche, but the thing is that every single aspect of a movie is important. That's the storytelling, everything about it. And so I know that I'm in the minority on this movie, and I know that a lot of people are going to have enormous amounts of fun with it on the surface level of it's an action movie, it's got a bunch of terrific choreography, it's in the mainstream, it's the thing that's going to be, it's going to, be on the box office top 5 probably, and it's going to be the thing that, people are going to have fun with it. But as I got increasingly into this movie, it just pushed me away further. And I think that the problem is because it tries to do too much. It tries to be 3 different movies, and those 3 different movies might have been terrific on their own. And maybe 2 of them would have worked together, but that third one just keeps interrupting it. And I think that it's because it's it's trying to be this very sly, very engaged political commentary about the era of the Cold War, and it just felt like a burden on everything else to me. I know that this is a very weird, and I have to think that people listening to the show are like, what are you on about, Joel? Just talk about how good the action scenes are. They are great. They are great. They are great. But a movie is not just its action scenes, even this one. And I think that the points of the plot that surround it are disappointing and underwhelming and very, very superficial. And when the movie knows what it wants to be, it's a lot of fun, but I just feel like, as a whole, it does not know what it wants to be. It wants to be several things. So if I were to get into the positives, I would say the cinematography is beautiful, the action choreography is excellent, Charlize Theron is a really solid presence, although of the cast, I actually think Toby Jones had the most fun. His is the funniest role here, where, in a very sly way, where he's having to hear these points in the interrogation, and he gets more baffled, more confounded, and more absolutely irritated and exhausted at what he's hearing, that it just becomes funnier and funnier, and he just gets more aggravated toward the Charlize Theron character. It's really funny. John Goodman's a solid presence because he's always a solid presence. He's John Goodman. James McAvoy's a lot of fun in a role that's not a very interesting role to me, but he's fun. And Sofia Boutella is probably the second best or whatever supporting role as the contact in France, because I think that she's able to introduce a lot of interesting, nuanced character elements that might not have existed on page. And so those are the positives. I think that it's a very well edited movie, but the negatives really outweigh this. I think that it tries too much to be something more than it is. And maybe you could argue that it is what it is, but I think that it's trying to be more than the very. It's kind of a dumb movie, Let's just say that. It's not dumb in a way that is stupid. It's just kind of dumb because some of the plot elements are, very typical of the thriller genre. I think that they mishandle some of the big revelations here, including there's one that's revealed in a scene where, like, the main element of the scene is a news broadcast about the Berlin Wall. So again, I think that distracts from the rest of the movie. I don't think that they needed to set this so explicitly against that background of political angst. I think that brings the movie down. And so that's the big negative for me, and it just kills the movie's kind of, when it gets going, it's fun, but I think it kills the pace of the movie whenever they try to bring in these extra elements that are a little more meaningful than the movie might earn them might earn. So anyway, those are my full thoughts.
Wow, that was a lot to take in.
Yeah, probably a weirdo. I am a weirdo, but that's where I'm at right now on it.
This is why I hired you. Okay, so walking out of the movie, I understand why people like it. I understand the appeal. It's a very fun movie at times, in spurts, if you will, and it is enjoyable on that aspect. Unfortunately, what is surrounding these really well choreographed, gritty, intense, and brutal fight scenes, which 99% of the time was Charlize Theron, and that actually makes it more authentic, and I appreciate that. It's the story around it that is what bugs me the most. Because believe it or not, the best thing about the movie are the fight sequences, the cinematography, the soundtrack at times, and the performances. A lot of people are saying throughout these reviews that Charlize Theron, there's really not that much to her. She just kind of is really good at her job, and she's got like some slight past history with some people, and that's about it. True, I will agree with you that with you on that. Her character is a little kind of underutilized, but she has a lot of smaller moments where you can see the emotion in her eyes. She does a lot of eye acting, and so I actually knew a lot more about her character through her eyes than anything else, but that's still not enough. And of course, James McAvoy's performance, really great. I enjoyed his facial acting. He's got some of the best like pain acting I've seen in any film. Ryan Reynolds comes to mind in Life, and then of course Leonardo DiCaprio in anything when he's in pain. They all three have really good pain faces, so I will give them that. And it looked like he had a fun time in the role. But his character, the problem with him is that he was generic. I saw whatever twist they wanted to do a mile coming. Not with his character in particular, because I want to kind of misdirect you guys, but just overall, just the way his character was handled was very generic and nothing really of substance to the overall movie, and really didn't make much of a difference considering how his arc ends. Toby Jones, John Goodman, that's fine. All the performances fine, choreography fine, gripping, brutal, and despite me having many flaws with this film, which I will get into just right after this one last compliment, Joel, is that one-shot sequence in that building is one of my favorite sequences of the entire year so far. Listen, if you can utilize one-shots correctly, I'm going to love you. And this did it just flawlessly. I loved it from start to finish. Like Joel said, it starts out in the building, it ends in a fucking car chase. Now, it is broken up, but it's still, I would still consider it just one long one-shot sequence. That's what they were going for. It was brutal. It was intense. It was bloody. It felt like realistic fighting. It didn't feel like, the stylized Hollywood fighting. I could feel each blow. I could feel the bones crunch into other people's faces. I could feel just every single hit that she was dishing out. Here's where the story falls apart. And it is the story. You know what's really funny, Joel, is I actually think the opposite. I actually think this is not three separate movies. This is one movie, but you know what this actually felt like? It felt like the third movie at the end of a trilogy arc. Like, that's what this movie felt like. It felt like everything has been in place for years. It felt like we've known these characters for years, and these were kind of like, this was kind of like the last mission that we're seeing of Charlize Theron's character, and then the movie just kind of ends, and you're like, I felt like we just watched the end of a trilogy without seeing part 2 and part 1 first. So everything didn't really have like any establishment to me. Nothing was really ever built upon. Nothing really had any substance or weight in terms of the characters or story that I actually cared about for wanting these people to make it out alive. And I know a lot of people are going to dish us out, Joel, so I have to say this now. Because a lot of people are going to be like, well, what about John Wick? There wasn't really anything about his character. He was just kind of like a revenge story. True, but you know what made his character a character? Is the fact that people were afraid of him. People called him the boogeyman. You say his name once, people were afraid. That automatically tells you a little something about him. Charlize Theron has none of that. Her character is just... she's just a prop to move from set to set to, I guess, fight some people and retrieve this MacGuffin. And you don't really know much about her. The only inkling of anything you know about her is something that you kind of know at the beginning. You're like, okay, she's kind of tied to some people. That's about it. So I think the lack of her character was the lack of me caring of anything that was happening to her, even though I enjoyed her fight sequences because Charlize Theron, my God, what a gorgeous, dangerous woman. But no, it's the story where it falls flat. And I do agree with Joel. It is like three conflicting things kind of headbutting each other, and it feels rushed. There's no weight to anything, and like I said, I agree with Joel, but for me, it felt like I said, the end of a trilogy more than anything, and I was like, well, I kind of want to see part 1 and part 2 first. You know what the odd thing is, Joel, about what all the stuff I just said is that if they made a sequel to this, I still want to see it. Because I'm curious to know where her character goes, and maybe they'll build upon it, but as a standalone movie, I felt like nothing was ever given to us. It was just a bunch of people going throughout the story, trying to find this one item, which, by the way, that is a hindrance to the story because it slows the movie down. Like, when your movie is like, almost 2 hours and your main goal is to just get this MacGuffin of some sort, you got to make it, a little bit more snappier in the editing. And I think, with that very thin plot of what was given, it does kind of slow the movie down a little bit. So, I was still intrigued by the movie because when the fight sequences happened, it was almost like a shot of adrenaline, like in Pulp Fiction. I woke the fuck up and I was like, oh shit, we're getting somewhere. And then it goes back to, the drama or, like Joel said, the conflicting storylines that, will take you out and be like, I really don't care. And listen, I realize that the graphic novel is set in the Cold War, but to be honest with you, you didn't need the Cold War. You didn't even need the time frame. You could have been set in modern time and still been just fine. I thought the Cold War kind of through line was kind of unnecessary. To be quite frank with you. And speaking of unnecessary, I thought Sophia Botell's character was kind of unnecessary. It's like I realized what she was doing, but at the same time, it's like if you just kind of plucked her out, it's like I don't think it would have made that much of a difference. Even with like the reveal of like what she did at the end, it's like okay. It's the same with James McAvoy's character. It's like when the twist happens, it's like okay, like everything just felt so generic and so rushed that they just felt like they had to throw a bunch of like twist curveballs at you, and it's like, well, hopefully you like one of these. So yeah, I just thought overall, it's not even that entertaining because these action sequences are in spurts. I agree with Joel. It's not an action film. It's a thriller with action sequences, and so. Yes.
Yeah, they're used to bridge the gap between the points in the plot. It's really not, the action is not the focus. And in fact, the film has a focus problem. I don't think it has a focus on any particular thing. It's just kind of throwing a lot of it at the wall. Although if they make the sequel, what it's got to be called, right? It's got to be called Atomic Blonde 2: Red, White, and Blonde. I mean, come on, man.
Well, it's one of those weird things to where, like, I will praise the action sequences, but I agree with Joel. They're almost like they're unnecessary because the central focus is on the drama between these characters, and the action sequences almost felt like intrusive. Like, they almost felt like, oh, we have to show this cool action scene because it's the co-director of John Wick. And so
it was entering another movie whenever. Yeah. Even with that impressive one take, I felt like that one stuck out rather than stood out because it felt like we were entering a different movie for a couple minutes.
Correct.
And then when we exited, we came back into this Cold War thriller thing, and then it was very jarring and yeah. So I'll go ahead and give, I guess, my final thoughts. Are we to that point yet?
I mean, I hit on the soundtrack because this was kind of a divisive thing for most people.
I forgot.
Well, I was just going to say a lot of people, we'll probably bring up Baby Driver in conversations while reviewing this movie because they kind of had a similar thing where like they use soundtrack to kind of fuel the story. The thing with Baby Driver is each song kind of meant something in the story versus like Atomic Blonde where like, yeah, the music was cool, but then there'd be some times where the music would just abruptly stop for no reason. And it's just like, we'll just carry on the movie. And it's like, that just felt like a mistake. It almost felt like someone put that song in. The director was like, man, that's really cool, man. And then just immediately stops and is like, yeah, it's fine. It's cool. It gets people jazzed up for the scene. It's like, no, your music shouldn't be utilized like that. So I almost felt like the soundtrack was a bit of a nuisance, even though all the songs were cool. Yeah,
it was like, it's a great soundtrack for some sort of movie. But it didn't work with this one, especially that
bar scene.
The use of father figure.
Yeah.
Was really weird because it does not fit the scene that it's in. It's not about anything to do with father figures. I just feel like you should use a song that fits the scene. That doesn't even fit the edits of the scene. It's just there. It's just because it's like, oh hey, look, we're listening to a George Michael song that doesn't fit the scene, so we're just gonna put it in here. And anyway, whatever. So my final thoughts, it's very disjointed and it lacks focus. It has some spurts of neat energy. It has some solid performances here and there, but it's a confused movie that it tries way too much, or it tries to do way too much. And I think that, trying to do a lot is fine. That's fine. But I think you have to have the conviction to approach a lot of this stuff. And this movie did not have that. And it's, for all of the successes in the visual department, I think it falls apart on a script level. And so that's why I'm going to be giving Atomic Blonde a C+.
Joel, apparently we are linked together like Professor X and his mind capabilities, speaking of James McAvoy, because I'm giving it the same fucking grade. Listen, on the surface level, it's a very average, basic assassin movie. And so I was, like, the whole time I was watching, I was like, you know what, a C is justified. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not the greatest thing. It's like, it's just down the middle. It's just very, very acceptable in the assassin genre and nothing more. But the only reason I'm going to give it that plus is because, yes, David Leitch does bring his John Wick flair to it in the action scenes, and they're fucking awesome to watch. Now, listen, as much as, like, I'm giving this movie a very, very, very low grade, that one-shot sequence is, if I had to make a top 10 great sequences in film this year so far, that's in there. Like, that was memorable. I remembered it. It was fun to watch. It was exciting. Yeah, but other than that, the story, like Joel says, where it falls flat, lacks extreme focus. Everything just doesn't work well together. It felt like the end of a trilogy for me. The music is very intrusive, and so was the Cold War thing. I realize that it's a part of the graphic novel, but that's what an adaptation means. You adapt it into something that actually works. It might work in the graphic novel, and there was actually some really cool cinematography shots in the movie that looked like a graphic novel panel. I understand that the filmmakers and the crew wanted to make something as truthful to the source material as possible, but when it doesn't work, you have to sit back as a producer or an executive producer or a director and say, this isn't working, we have to adapt it in another form because it works in this medium, but it doesn't work in that medium. So it's one of those things where you have to work with it. Yeah, but the reason why I'm not going to shit on this movie as much as some other movies I've seen is because the actors were trying. Charlize Theron, she is very commanding on screen. Regardless of what movie she's in, I always love seeing her. She is ferocious. She is sexy as all hell. She is badass. She did her own stunts. She's got some pretty, like I said, nice little subdued emotional moments, but that's just not enough to carry the movie over into the B category for me, so that's why I'm going to settle on a C+, and I'm giving the plus edge because of the choreography and the fights involved, because, let's just face it, those are always fucking cool, and if you can put that into any assassin movie, I'm totally on board. So, what about you guys? What did you guys think of Atomic Blonde? And let us know, are we crazy? Did you love it more than we did? Listen, like I said, I didn't really care for the movie. I really don't want to watch it again. However, if they announce a sequel to advance the story, I'm still on board with it. If they can still make it in the vein of like that John Wick type of violence, I am all for any type of assassin movie. So even if it's not as good and you still want to make a sequel, I'm still on board. And so, Joel, I have to ask you before we move on to the box office, if Atomic Blonde announced they were doing a sequel, would you still be interested in this world and these characters?
I'd be intrigued. I mean, maybe not excited, but I'd be intrigued. It's certainly an intriguing set of characters, or at least the primary ones, you know. I'd certainly enjoy seeing her, you know, beat people up again. That would be fun. But you know, maybe a bit of a stronger basis. But I'd be intrigued.
Yeah. No, I mean, okay. I mean, that's understandable. But you're not like flat out like.
No.
You're not flat out saying like I would never want to see another movie in this franchise.
This movie is one of those. I gave it 2.5 stars on my website because I do star ratings there, and you know, 2.5 stars basically means I can't recommend it, but I wouldn't stop you from seeing it. Like it's one of those things. It's good enough for a rental. I don't think it's theater necessary, really. I think Blu-ray would work just as well.
I agree. It's a good TV movie.
Yeah, it really is. It's like I was saying with the John Wick movies. It's sort of a mid-90s budget, or you know, mid-budget. Wow, 90s mid-budget thriller that just happened to come out in 2017, and I'm fine with that. I think that's what I want. I want a bit, you know, stronger ones, but than this. But I just say, you know, see it if you want to see it, but I can't really recommend it, and so that's sort of my thing.
I agree. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. Like, even if you were a John Wick fan and you like that style, I still wouldn't even recommend it. I'd just be like, hey, listen, you know, when it comes out in Blu-ray and someone wants to show you the fight sequences, sure, go watch it, but you don't have to watch the whole thing.
Wick 2 just came out on Blu-ray. Watch that.
Yeah, exactly. Go watch John Wick Chapter 2 because that shit's dope, and I can't wait for Chapter 3.
Yeah, that was a lot better.
Yeah, so, all right, guys. So, let us know down below what you thought of Atomic Blonde. Now, jumping into the box office results for the weekend, oh, boy, it is Joel's turn to fuck up because I did this twice in a row where I would forget a movie even existed in the top 5, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm dumb as fuck. So Joel, your hint for this week is, of course, the brilliant Oscar-nominated, supposedly, The Emoji Movie and Atomic Blonde were the only two that came out in wide release. Now, there was a lot of, like, smaller releases like Detroit and stuff, but we're talking, you know, wide releases because, let's face it, those movies didn't even make it anywhere near the top 10. So, those were your two big releases. What do you got? Give it to me. Top 5.
All right, so I guess first I just want to say that I did see the Emoji Movie.
Stop bringing it up as if you're fucking proud about it.
It's pretty awful. But I will say that, as you know, by accident, I saw the positioning of the Emoji Movie in the top 5. So because of that, it's a little easier to guess, I think. Because I mean, I might still get a couple of them switched, but pretty sure I know the top 3. And I think beyond that for the other two, I'm pretty close. So I'm going to say that number 1 is Dunkirk, did repeat business. I'm going to say that number 2 is the Emoji Movie. That's the one that I know. And then number 3 is Atomic Blonde. Number 4 I'm going to say is Girls Trip, and number 5 is Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Joel. If you would have switched 3 and 4, you would have had it. So Joel almost had it. Like when he was going down, I was like, oh fuck, he's got this. He should know that Girls Trip is probably not going to dip that much, but lo and behold, he was wrong. So number 5, we're going to go with Spider-Man: Homecoming with $13.4 million. It's doing very, very well. Right now, domestically, it's at 278, which is the U.S. and Canada, and of course worldwide it's at 633 on a $175 million budget. Double that to 350. Let's say they did about 100 mil, maybe even more in marketing and PA. So you know they need to make about 450-ish to break even, and they've made almost 200 million more, so they're doing just fine. The next one up is Atomic Blonde with 18.5 million, which is actually pretty good for this movie because it is kind of marketed as a smaller movie. It is from Focus Features. They typically do smaller movies with smaller budgets, and his budget's not bad, considering the fact that they had to replicate 80s Berlin and whatnot. So 30 million was their budget. So domestically 18, and worldwide it made 24 opening weekend. But that's still not good. They need to make about, I say with marketing and doubling that, 70, 75-ish, maybe to break even. It might, I think Joel and I are probably correct. It's going to do probably very well on like Blu-ray and iTunes and whatnot, so it's probably going to make most of its money there, to be honest with you. Because, with next weekend, this coming weekend, we don't really have much coming out, but there's still going to be some threats. So it might have some carryover, but I'm not really rooting for it.
Yeah, I feel like The Dark Tower, as generic and stuff as that looks, and very low buzz, I feel like that's probably going to take away some of its audience, because I feel like those are going to play for similar audiences.
Yeah, it could not. I mean, The Dark Tower is PG-13, so it could be a whole different crowd of people, but we'll see. Number 3 is Girls Trip with 20.085. It's doing very well, actually. Its budget is 19 million, doubling that to 38. I don't think they spent too much on marketing, so I'm going to say for shits and gigs, I'm going to say 45 tops to break even. They've made 67 worldwide, so good for them. They did way better than Rough Night, the movie that was basically competing with them, so congratulations, Girls Trip. I hear you were pretty funny. I'll check you out on rental. Number 2 is the Emoji Movie with 25.65 million. That number is important. Remember that. Its budget, god damn, I can't believe people poured money into this, was 50 million, doubling that plus adding the marketing. I'm going to say for shits and gigs, probably anywhere from 130 to 150 to break even, and it only made 25. I hope this movie fucking tanks. That's all I have to say. Number 1 is Dunkirk with 28.13 million, so it barely made it. The numbers could change by tomorrow, but these are the Sunday numbers. This is what Joel and I do. We don't do Monday actuals. That's just what we do. Dunkirk, 28.1 on a pretty modest $100 million budget, considering what Christopher Nolan does. So right now, domestically it's at 102, and worldwide it's at 234. But in order to break even, I'm going to say it probably needs to make anywhere. To be honest with you, its marketing was either insanely expensive or pretty modest. So I'm going to say the range is probably anywhere from 250 to 300 mil to break even. So it's on its way to break even, but Warner Brothers is hoping for definitely a bigger profit than that. So, I like it a lot. Joel likes it a lot, so go support it, please. So, and then in the ancillary market, Detroit opened up in a handful of theaters, and Joel and I contributed to this gross because we paid for it, which would be $365,000. So it didn't do terrible, because it says it opened up in 20 theaters, actually. So, yeah, that's actually not bad. An Inconvenient Sequel, the sequel to An Inconvenient Truth, opened in 4 theaters, and it made $130,000. But I really don't care about the gross on that. Just climate change is real, guys. Just go along with it and try to at least slow the process down before you all die. All right, so so next week, guys, is Detroit and Dark Tower. It comes out. It's going to be a fascinating battle. I think the Dark Tower is going to tank. I think the Emoji Movie is going to tank even harder in its second week drop. And honestly, I think Detroit will probably come out doing some really good back and forth with Dunkirk for the top spot. I actually think it's going to be that powerful for sure. But that will be on next week's episode for sure. But as far as this week's episode, we are done. We donezo, folks. So that is episode 193, and hopefully you stuck along through the entire thing. And we always like making these podcasts the same length as the Transformers films, but obviously we're more entertaining. But for next week, 194, like I said, we're going to be reviewing Detroit, which Joel and I have already seen, by the way. I wish we could just go for another hour and talk about that, but we're going to save that conversation for next week, as our conversation for The Dark Tower will probably only like 10 minutes. Listen, I'm always hopeful for movies, but I've never been won over by any of the trailers. So
yeah, it looks generic beyond work.
It looks like generic flop, and it's also from Sony, which has the Emoji Movie, but they also have Spider-Man, so I can't give them too much shit. So that will be next week. So I'm looking forward to that. So Joel, before we kind of head out here, where can the lovely people find you online?
Yeah, I just wanted to say too that the Emoji Movie has terrible buzz from people like just who have seen it this weekend, so it's probably going to drop tremendously. And it's probably I would suspect that it's going to be like out of the top 10 by August, by the end of August. I would suspect maybe in the middle of August, because it's just not getting its job done. Yeah, so you can find my review of that and my review of Atomic Blonde at joelonfilm.com. I also this weekend put up my reviews for A Ghost Story. I already talked about that one with my esteemed co-host, and then also a movie called City of Ghosts, which is a documentary about the resistance against ISIS being taking place in Raqqa, Syria. That's a terrific movie. And so that's my website. And then you can occasionally find my writing at dallasmoviescreenings.com, letterboxd.com/jcopling. You can find me on Twitter at Copling_Joel, although that may or may not change pretty soon. I'm going to be making a decision within the next week whether you can find me there, but as of right now you can. And so I am making some interesting movements in this next month. It's pretty intense. So
it's very intense. He told me earlier before we recorded, and I was like, God damn it, Joel, that was intense. So you guys can follow me on Twitter at RealChaseLee, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then of course you need to like, rate, comment, all that shit for the podcast. Spread it around and let people know that this is the definitive movie podcast on the face of the fucking planet. And you guys are always the best. You guys are very supportive every single week. And ever since I brought Joel on, the numbers have surged. So I don't know where the fuck they're coming from, but apparently Joel's got a large fan base that I should have tapped into a long time ago. But no, Joel, thank you for always being a part of the show. And I'm glad that you guys are enjoying it, spreading it around, and just continuing to make it grow. Let's grow this thing. So let people know about the show and what the fuck is up. And hey, listen, if you made it through this entire podcast and you're not a movie fan, well, hopefully Joel and I convinced you to be one. And the intro and outro music done by my friends band Fervent Roze. All the links in the description below. Sounds like Joel has to say something real fast.
Yes, I just wanted to thank Chase for letting me be a part of this, because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of fun with Joel every single week. And speaking of fun, just to give you guys a little nipple tease like Joel fucking does every week, I will just say this. Next week's episode is going to spark some interesting conversation from the movie Detroit. So what are we talking about exactly? Did we hate it? Did we love it? You're going to have to fucking find out next week. And speaking of that, let's play the outro music. Peace out, everyone. You guys are fucking badass. Goodbye. See you next week.